The smartest man in the Empire is chained in the middle of the court. This is Henry Morris, the first 8th cycle mage in human history. The man who helped build the Empire from scratch is now in chains, waiting to be judged for a rebellion he never planned. The Emperor set up a fake accusation against Henry to have him found guilty and executed in public. When the judge opened his mouth to talk about the Emperor's mercy, Henry told them to cut the act and just kill him already. The warrior raises his sword and swings fast, beheading Henry. The Burger King mascot flashed a big smile, but obviously the story doesn't end here. The mage wakes up holding a headless chicken and a grimoire. Looks like the kid who owned the body performed a resurrection ritual and pulled the soul of the most dangerous mage in the Empire. When Henry gets up and walks to the mirror, he sees he's in the body of a 20-year-old. For a moment he stays quiet, analyzing the place and studying the body. He finds out he's not a warrior, so Henry tries to cast magic but nothing happens. He keeps trying anyway, until a magic orb appears in his chest. After completing the first magic circle in his heart, Henry says that's enough for today, and decides to go out for a bit. Leaving the room, he finds the guard asleep. Henry lets out a yell that wakes the guard up and makes him jump to his feet. Henry just stares at him, wondering what's wrong with this guard. The mage kept staring while the guard looked back completely lost. Then Henry loses it, decides the guard looks like a soccer ball, and boots the chubby guy right in the leg. The man is wondering what he did wrong and why he's getting beaten up, and then Henry, not satisfied at all, kicks him in the face. Yikes, the old man has lost his mind. Henry started calling the guard useless. Even though the chubby guy had no idea what was going on, he just apologized. The mage tells him to lift his head, and the poor guy already thought he was about to get hit again, but the mage says he'll show mercy this time. That night, he spent studying about the family, and when he was done, he decided to train the magic circle until sunrise. When the sun comes up, he's soaked in sweat, exhausted, but with the first circle locked in his chest. The chubby guy walks into the room with a basin of water for the boy. Henry takes a bath, goes to the wardrobe and gets dressed for the family dinner. Breakfast with the Morris family is a show. Brother Kevin eats like a happy pig, food flying, soup splashing everywhere, which leaves the MC disgusted. The father takes the moment to ask who's going to enroll in the Swordsman Academy, but before Henry can even think, Kevin already answered that nobody is better than himself, and the father agreed. Then Henry says that an illegitimate son shouldn't be representing the family at an academy, and on top of that says Kevin's skill is way behind his. The whole family bursts out laughing. Henry, who in his past life made kings bow their heads, is being mocked in a dining room by people he could defeat in his sleep. To prove his point, Henry proposes a duel, and the father, who was curious, accepts. Outside, Kevin is laughing as he tosses the sword to his brother. He thinks this is going to be a quick beating, and it is, just not the way he's thinking. What nobody sees is Henry activating reinforcement magic before taking his first step. Muscle strength, agility, and reflexes, all boosted by his magic. Before Kevin can even process it, Henry leaps forward, lands right in front of him and attacks with insane speed. Kevin raises his sword at the last second. Without stopping, Henry grabs his brother's neck, lands a clean kick to the leg, and takes Kevin down in a matter of seconds. The family is shocked by his speed. When the boy was about to finish the fight, the father lets out a shout, and Henry holds back the attack. The boy decides to rest for a bit, leaving the whole family in shock at what they just witnessed. In the bathtub, he takes a hot bath to relax his muscles, but the intensity of the circle increases and starts causing discomfort. So he decides to make an elixir called Miraculous Blue that he himself created. When taken, it unlocks and multiplies the body's natural magic capacity. The guard went to get the ingredients, but there's a problem. The green crow flower can't be obtained because bandits are blocking the route. Henry then tells the servant to grab 2 horses and a sword, because he's going to handle this personally. The problem is that the boy's horse looks like it's on its last breath. One strong wind, and this animal drops dead. Henry decides to use biological modification magic. He bites his finger and spends hours drawing runes with his own blood all over the animal's body. I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. Get back. The old nag turns into a strong mare, healthy with a proud posture. The guard is impressed because the horse was practically on its way out, and now it's back to 100%. They mount the horses and head into the forest. To lure the bandits, Henry loaded the servant up with jewelry. The horses start trotting slowly, hoping to run into the bandits as soon as possible. It doesn't take long for the group to gather in front of the adventurers, ordering them to stop. These people showed up fast, making the ogre really nervous, afraid of losing his life. Thinking it over, the MC knew these people were good at hiding, but they're more careful than he thought. The leader starts laughing, asking what the boys are doing, because it looks like they're shouting to get captured. Curious, the hero asks if the person in front of him is in fact the leader of all these people. The boy's guess is that these people need a lot of gold for the leader to have to show himself. Actually, the man's demand is that if all the jewels are handed over, their lives will be spared. Still, that doesn't scare the protagonist at all, who's relaxed and calm about it. In fact, he's so confident that he cracks a happy smile, knowing this is going to be an interesting moment. Seeing they're surrounded, the servant asks his master what they'll do to survive this clash, which is definitely dangerous. He realizes there must be well over 20 soldiers here, and doesn't know how he's going to fight them all. The master says everything will be over when the man wakes up from his afternoon nap. That annoys the fat guy, who wonders what the boy is trying to say with that, so he winds up a strike toward the servant's head. That's what he does, slapping him across the face like he's scolding him. The slap was so sudden it was enough to make the big man fall to the ground, leaving him vulnerable for the bandits to attack. When he hit the ground, he banged his head and passed out, starting an involuntary nap. Getting off the mare, he talks to her, asking the girl to wait patiently. Looking like a maniac, the group leader asks what his opponent is trying to do, thinking the guy is crazy. The explanation is that the protagonist put his servant to sleep, since he would end up becoming a burden and dead weight throughout this whole fight. It's weird because the boy is planning to defeat all these men by himself, which is really hard. The MC starts counting, one by one, how many soldiers are around him, to gauge the strength of his attacks. After counting, he realizes there are only 25, saying it in a tone of contempt, thinking it would be way harder to face them all. The man thinks his opponent is nuts, because he's paying attention to useless things, but he replies that they'll see, at the end of the fight, who the real lunatic is. Story. Then right away, he snaps his fingers, releasing a powerful sudden purple magic to start the fight. Blue bubbles appear on the bandits' heads, putting them at a disadvantage. In fact, all the bandits get wrapped up in these blue water bubbles, getting extremely confused, not knowing what's happening. The bubble, dangerously, starts to cover everyone's head, taking away all the oxygen. Proudly, the boy says he shouldn't dirty his hands when he's only taking down a few weak, useless bandits. Without wasting time, the fight is over before it even begins, with most of the soldiers dropping to the ground, out of air. The leader still hasn't been taken out because he's tougher, but he's running out of air and out of options. With all his strength, he struggles to pull the water bubble off his head, panicking because he can't breathe. It's not enough, and he ends up falling to the ground just like his fighting buddies, like he's nobody. To top it off and show his authority, the mage starts summoning a fireball. That scares the leader, because he didn't know his opponent was that powerful. Without any mercy, the boy launches the fireball toward the bandits. The spot he was aiming at wasn't the bandits, but some point much farther behind. That explosion is really loud and makes a huge noise, scaring the leader and making him cry like a scared little kid. Annoyed, the boy says there will be consequences if he sees any of those idiots' faces around here again. He threatens them, saying none of them will make it out alive if they're seen in this area again. Some time passes, and everyone leaves, clearing the way for the trade route. The fat guy keeps on napping, having lost the whole fight in the blink of an eye. Caught off guard, he wakes up startled, not understanding what's going on, because all of a sudden he was on the ground. He asks his master what happened to those bandits who were surrounding them, because they vanished into thin air. Lying, the master answers that he thinks they all ran off, without telling the whole truth. That leaves the ogre speechless, not understanding what's going on, since that group was known for being violent. The hero tells his servant to make sure he doesn't forget anything and to hurry up so they can head back home. The ogre doesn't understand anything that's happening, because he suddenly passed out and woke up with no bandits around. Some time passes, and the adventurers return to the Baron's house, having completed their main objective. Unfortunately, none of the jewels were stolen in the process, keeping them from bringing any trouble to the family. The hero says he'll return all those items to where they came from, like they never even left. He jokes with his servant not to steal any of that gear, asking if he didn't lose anything, which annoys him a bit, because he'd never steal any of it, let alone lose something that valuable. The time to return Jade to the stable has come, and the hero needs to say goodbye to his precious mare. Slowly, the two walk side by side toward the entrance. All of a sudden, the MC is tipped off by some strange presence near the stable, which completely grabs his attention. The stable hand welcomes his master back, bowing deeply, an elderly man. The boy says he's there to return the horse to its place, but he also wants to take a look at the other stalls to see what's inside. Clearly, the old man can't really say no, so he goes along with it, and lets the boy do whatever he wants. Suddenly, the blonde wakes up, bedridden after being defeated in front of everyone. All bandaged up, he notices his mother there, who'd been taking care of him the whole time to prevent worse injuries. Still feeling aches all over his body, he wonders what happened for him to end up there. After hearing the whole story, he can't believe it as he replays the scenes, wondering if he really lost. Irritated, the blonde woman curses at her son, asking what kind of training he'd been doing all this time to get beaten. He thinks to himself there's no way that happened, because he's way more skilled than the protagonist. More than anything, the image of his brother pops into his head, and he thinks his brother is really lazy and could never have beaten him. After all, he's never missed a day of training in his life and has always been super focused on his craft. And then he got beaten by his lazy brother, and that makes him suspicious about what's going on. He yells again that this is completely impossible and could never have happened. For real. The protagonist starts heading toward the stables with his mare behind him, walking slowly. That white horse belongs to the lord of the house, and everyone takes careful care of it. The other one is the young man's horse, Master Kevin's, which is also extremely well cared for, making the MC think the horse's conditions are good, especially since his was neglected and forgotten. The last question is where his mare's stall is, so she can stay calm and relaxed. The old man points to one of the last ones inside the stable, a bit hesitant. When he looks, the MC is a little shocked by how the place looks, confused about whether this is really the right stall for his animal. Looking again, he realizes it's damp and dirty, which pisses him off, because it's not being taken care of at all. Saying the mare's name is Jade, he says he'll treat it as an honest mistake, but from now on he wants them to be really careful. Embarrassed, the man says he'll start taking really good care of the girl and apologizes. As he leaves, he's happy the man took it well and didn't try to talk back to any of his lectures. And he says not to forget to take care of the horses, and that the next time he comes here, and any of these animals are in terrible shape, there will be consequences. Scared, the old man says he understands, wondering what the consequences will be for doing a bad job. Lastly, you give your mare a pat, praising her for the good job getting you to your goal. Night falls inside the castle, and people keep going about their chores like normal. At the dinner table, the father calls out his oldest son, because there's something on his mind he wants to talk to him about. The man wants to discuss the duel that happened this morning, asking what his boy thinks about all of it. While having coffee, the boy says everything's fine, and he didn't take any really serious damage. However, he throws the question back at the concubine, asking what she thinks about everything that happened. Annoyed, she tries to hold her tongue, says her opinion doesn't matter, and asks them to keep talking. Getting up from the table, bothered by knowing her son was defeated, she says she's going to go do her chores. A whirlwind of thoughts is going through the woman's head as she leaves, making the other two men confused about what's going on. The father asks when his son learned to fight so well, because he'd never shown that experienced side to the family before. The boy argues that he's not that good with blades, and was just trying to teach his brother a lesson, since he's spoiled. The father asks if the boy is really going to the Swordsman Academy, and he answers that he won't, and thinks his brother should go. Leaving the head of the family surprised, he wonders why the boy changed his mind so suddenly, for no reason. Explaining that he thought about it a lot, because he believes his brother has more of the skills needed to start classes. The father notices his son is giving different reasons than this morning, asking if he didn't say his brother wasn't good. Lying once again, the MC says he wasn't thinking clearly, and believes they wouldn't be sending his brother to that place without any help at all. The protagonist says he's putting the academy aside, but he doesn't want to waste a big opportunity like this. Saying he just wanted to test that kid, he asks his father to send his brother to his room. The Baron thinks all of this is weird, saying his son is sounding like a stranger, but he'll do as asked. Excited, the boy also says he heard some rumors that the bandit group that was robbing people on the trade route disappeared. Surprised, the old man is confused, asking if it really is who he's thinking it is. The boy confirms that the merchants stopped getting robbed, making the father say he'll ask his men to confirm it. Everyone heads to their rooms because there's nothing else to talk about at this dinner, and they need to sleep. The MC hears people saying it's crazy, the decision he made not to go to the Swordsman Academy. That makes him curious to know who's saying it so loudly, and so close to his door. Opening the door slowly, the blonde shows up with a really sad, worn-out look on his face. Seeing his brother coming closer, the mage asks what he wants so late at night. Awkwardly, the boy starts thinking of a way to say what's on his mind without getting yelled at. Nervous, he says the Baron told him to come to this room to talk about the academy. Annoyed, the wizard says he doesn't understand what his brother is talking about, asking if he's used to talking like an idiot. Embarrassed, he yells no, not knowing how to answer that stupid question. Curious, the MC asks him to repeat what their father said earlier, so he can finally understand the conversation. That surprises him, because the boy is different, and he wonders how it was possible for him to change like that. All of a sudden, he apologizes, leaving the protagonist curious to understand what he means by that. He's talking about the times he was rude to his older brother, and everything he did without knowing his place. He managed to teach the boy a lesson, and says he really decided to give up going to the academy. That leaves the blonde confused and surprised, because he wasn't expecting that kind of sudden info. But even though he gave up, that doesn't mean the chance automatically goes to the younger brother. Even so, he believes the boy really wanted to go, that's why he's giving him the chance to do it. But there's a condition. Right away, eager to know, Kevin says he'll accept any kind of demand, not knowing what the request will be. Then the hero says he doesn't need to make such a big deal out of it, and asks if he's heard of someone called Bernhun. After thinking for a bit, he asks if he means a place north of the house. It's explained that the protagonist has some business to take care of there, but he asks his brother to go handle it in his place. He says that one of this place's regional products is the green flower, which he really needs to make his elixir. So the request is for Kevin to go there and fetch that item in person, asking if he thinks he'll be able to do it. Right away, the blonde guy yells yes, and that he'll definitely manage it, no doubt about it. But before he goes, the MC says he has things to say and warn him about, but he really drags out the suspense. He explains that even though it's something you can stockpile, he needs to act fast if he wants his revenge. He tells his brother he has, at most, 6 days to go there and get back in time with the product. That makes him nervous, thinking that if he doesn't sleep, 6 days is only enough time to stay focused. Playing an emotional game, the hero says that if it's too hard, he doesn't have to push himself to do it. Screaming at the top of his lungs, he says he'll do it, because he wants to prove to his older brother that he's useful and that he's an important person too. With a smile on his face, the mage is happy because he finally convinced the boy to do a job. Night falls at the stable, and something is wrong, because the doors are open. For some reason, all the horses are loose in the wind, free out in the area outside the stall. With no supervision at all, we can see the white horse, which seems to be the most majestic of them all, walking around. He starts staring at the protagonist's horse really closely, because something is bothering him. Jade is really calm near the place where they drink water, not caring about what's happening around her. That annoys the white one, who charges at her in a rage, for some unexplained reason. He runs and lunges at his target, coming in with his head toward the back of the animal. Jade is so at peace that she doesn't even notice something coming closer, and she's dozing off, looking at the horizon, which gives her calm and peace. Being a really troublemaking horse, the white one readies a powerful bite with his teeth. He bites into his opponent's hide, trying to hurt as much as possible, and mess up the target. That scares Jade, because she wasn't expecting an animal attack. As a reaction and defense, she kicks with all her strength into the head of the animal that attacked her. The impact was so strong it knocks the white one to the ground, leaving him confused about what's happening. That just makes him angrier, and he starts getting up with a look full of hate, remembering the time when Jade was malnourished, when nobody cared, and she was mistreated by everyone. All of that changed after the protagonist showed up, who fully healed the mare, making her even more intimidating. Now she's way more imposing and isn't afraid of anything. Not even the white horse scares her. A loud scream can be heard, showing that the white one got punished for his bad behavior. Someone desperate is yelling for Vernon, wondering where that man is. The old man shows up, asking what's going wrong and why they're screaming. Annoyed, he wonders why his horse is like that, because he must be seeing something wrong. The poor animal is down, really weak, with no strength at all to move or get up. He wonders why the majestic white one is like that. Realizing something is going on, Kevin says rightly that if the stable caretaker doesn't know, nobody else will. On his knees, the man says this can't be happening, and begs to be spared, remembering the threat. He explains that he really doesn't know, because everything was fine. He's ordered to find another horse. Thinking about why this is happening, he realizes there isn't any other good horse available. The only other one that can do the job is the brown horse that attacked the white one last night. Even with the old man trying to say that horse belongs to someone else, the blonde guy won't listen, tells him to shut up, and tries to saddle the horse any way he can, not caring about the animal's well-being. Seeing he's being forced to do something he doesn't want, the horse, skittish and defiant, tries to intimidate and attack the boy. The blonde guy just stands there watching as the hoof comes toward his face to land a deadly hit. The horse slams its hooves down hard, smashing up the spot where it stomps. Luckily, the old man manages to save the boy from the attack, but the horse still seems angry. After being saved, the swordsman starts wondering what's wrong with that horse that attacked him. The old man tells him to calm down, because that is actually Master Henry's horse. Finally, the blonde guy starts thinking something's off, because his brother's horse wasn't like this. It's explained that if the boy needs a horse, he should use the one kept for emergencies. Thinking about all of that makes the boy break out in a cold sweat, because he doesn't understand what's really going on. Getting up still kind of dazed, he punches the wall out of sheer anger, because what's happening is really weird and unexpected. As he takes the horse and heads toward his goal, he thinks about how he was intimidated and almost taken out by a horse. With every second that passes, he gets farther and farther away, since he can't waste time. Looking out the window, the MC wonders if, now that his brother has left, all he has to do is wait. But actually, his plan is to build a strong body so he can handle the most powerful poison in the world. The foundation of that strong body is the mana of ordinary people, called Auror, which is something different from magic. Mastering that kind of mana is easy, but the person has to put themselves through brutal training to always reach their limit. After all that effort, the user will be able to notice and realize that they've finally gained Auror in their body. He remembers a memory from the past, when one of his companions called him over to train. He argued it was to strengthen the mage's weak body and make him stronger overall. In the present, he curses that warrior as annoying, because back then he really didn't want to train at all. He keeps looking out the window for a few minutes, thinking about what he should do with all this free time. Someone tells the young master that they've arrived at the desired location. Going inside, the MC tells his servant to come get him as soon as lunch is ready. According to his family tree, there are only 2 swordsmen in the family, and one of them is the lord of the mansion and a baron, named Hans Morris. The second is the head of the families and the mansion's security, the captain of the guards, Byrne. So finding out the captain of the guards is a sword specialist catches the protagonist's attention. Slowly, he goes in without drawing any attention, because of how quiet and low-key he is. Seeing the place shocks him, because it's way quieter than he thought, and he wonders if everyone is out doing chores. Suddenly, a little girl carrying a bag shows up, asking if the person in front of her is the master. He tells her to forget all the formalities, and asks where the lord is right now. She answers that at this exact moment, he's in the back of the guard post. After hearing that, the boy walks along the mansion wall, trying to find the right spot. While he's walking, someone shows up, surprised to see the baron's son in that place. The warrior asks what brings the boy to such a dirty, poorly kept place. Being formal, he says it's very good to see the guard captain once again, and says he came there to ask a favor. When the boy asks to be taught the art of the sword, the man is startled, because he wasn't expecting a request like that. The boy says he'd like to start training, and it's explained that in the past, he claimed he didn't see any need for it. Hearing that surprises the man a bit, but he says he changed his mind, and asks whether it'll really be possible to be trained or not. Byrne is really happy to see the master interested in the art of the blade, and asks if he's ready. He jokes that there's no reason to be ashamed of having an ambition this big. The trainer asks if he can clear up a doubt with his newest student, who says yes. His question is whether it's true what he heard from the stories about when the duel with young Master Kevin happened in the previous days. The real doubt is whether the boy learned about the art of being a swordsman from somewhere else that isn't known. The mage explains that it's not like that, and that, actually, he decided to train in this art from now on. He apologizes, saying his excuse wasn't convincing enough, making the guard think something's off. He asks if the boy wants to do a duel before starting training, to see his level. The mage explains he was going to teach the basics, but after hearing that he beat his brother he believes that isn't enough. He can't come up with a lie good enough to avoid this. So the two of them head toward the duel area to do it the right and safe way. Even before the duel starts, the protagonist activates his skill called Magic Armor, giving him a small early advantage. Right after that, he activates other spells, making him stronger, with a purple aura around his body. Before the spar starts, the warrior says he'll let his student attack first, so he can see how he's going to act. The boy is grateful for the courtesy of getting the first move, and has a slight advantage in the fight. He dashes straight toward his opponent, leaving no trace behind as he runs. The fighter doesn't move, because he knows he's the more experienced one in this duel, and he's going to win. As the sword comes toward the man's face, he doesn't even flinch, just taking a single step to the side, enough for the MC to miss in a humiliating way. Seeing the opening for a counterattack he now has, the captain of the guard lands a heavy blow to the boy's stomach. The protagonist was even faster, and managed to block the kick with his hand, while it was charged up with magic. That surprises the fighter, who thinks this can't be just a coincidence. Annoyed that his attack got blocked, he grips the sword with all his strength, getting ready for an attack that will win the fight. His student manages to dodge in time, ducking his head under the strike and making him miss. That scares the warrior again, since he didn't expect the boy to be that agile with a sword. The MC once again readies an attack as he closes in on the target, hoping to win the fight. When he strikes, the fighter manages to block in time, avoiding losing the duel in a humiliating way. He stops for a few seconds to catch his breath and recover his energy after a string of precise attacks. After blocking, the man wonders if his opponent's sword has always been powerful, because there's something he still isn't noticing, and his plan is to push his rival to the limit as much as he can. Then he prepares another attack toward the MC, giving him little room to defend or react. He swings the wooden blade with all the strength of his body, and says this is the real strike. Even so, the boy manages to block the impact at the last second with the wood of his sword, avoiding taking damage to his body. Which is pretty funny to the commander, because trying to block that attack is a terrible decision. The MC thinks that must be why the man is called the commander of the guards, because besides the mana of Aurora he carries, his skill with blades is on another level. He wonders why the man is out in a rural area when he's skilled enough to be in the army. The commander keeps pressing forward, setting up an attack toward his target, and even if he misses, he'll still reach him. While blocking the blow, the MC thinks that if this keeps up, he's really going to run out of energy. The hit he took was so strong it almost made the protagonist fall, knocking his sword to the ground. Without giving him even a second to rest, the warrior keeps striking non-stop, trying to end the fight as soon as possible. Blocking attack after attack without a break is wearing the protagonist out. He's sweating a lot and starting to tremble as he holds the sword. Actually, seeing all this is surprising the captain of the guard, and he praises his opponent. That makes him curious, wondering what his friend is trying to say with that. He asks why his student has been hiding his blade skills until today. Hearing that leaves the commander confused, because he doesn't believe you can learn the art of the sword just by watching others fight. When it comes to blade work, it's impossible to learn based only on movement. Really tired and sweating a lot. The boy says this is beyond what he expected for this duel. Leaving the man even more confused, he asks what his opponent is trying to say with all of this. The student says that since he's going to be retrained starting now, talking casually doesn't seem like the right way to do this. Like his trainer is really good at reading people naturally. One of the methods used is the imperial one, and it's pretty common across the whole territory to learn this style. The mage thinks he tried to get away from his friend Jackson's upbringing, but wherever he goes, this fighting style is considered the standard among experienced warriors. When the boy asks his teacher what time the lessons are going to start, the captain says that title of teacher makes him a little embarrassed. He says that either way the first lesson won't be hard, so he'll count this as the very first one, and ask his student a question. The MC thinks he needs to train more, because after thinking for a while he believes his body is lacking a lot of stamina to be able to fight for longer. He explains that stamina is an important foundation for winning any duel. Luckily the boss agrees that this answer is right, since he needs energy if he wants to survive until the end of the fights. When he's asked what he thinks was missing during the fight, the boy says everything was missing, and that he's a blank sheet of paper. The boss agrees the answer is correct, but says he'll start filling in that paper over time. Actually, he believes the foundation of sword fighting is something else, and even more important. To everyone's surprise, the mage says the most important thing to learn first is footwork agility. The hero remembers his friend used to say the same thing about piecework jobs, and that everything starts with good posture and agility. The boss notices his student isn't convinced by the argument that the foundation of blades isn't stamina. Letting go of his sword, he says he'll prove the difference personally, and from now on he'll be defending and only dodging every attack, letting his opponent attack him. The master says he thinks his teacher is underestimating him, but that's another lesson for the future. With swords in hand, he'll follow the request and attack as much as he can, activating his first magic, the purple aura, strengthening his whole body. He warns that he's going to hit as hard as he can. Using all his speed, he rushes in without thinking twice, trying to land a hit. The captain of the guard manages to dodge without even moving a muscle in his face, knowing he's more agile. Without stopping, the boy keeps striking fast and non-stop, but he doesn't land a single blow, even though he really wants to. He doesn't stop and keeps trying to hit his opponent with all the strength in his body. But the soldier keeps dodging without even thinking about what he's doing, like it's easy and effortless. The last dodge strike makes the hero lunge forward by accident, throwing his whole body ahead. The experienced warrior uses that chance to appear behind his student. Seeing his trainer is no longer in front of him, leaves the mage confused, wondering where he is and why he vanished so suddenly. The boss taps his disciple on the neck to warn him he's looking the wrong way. When the finger touches his body, the sorcerer gets startled and lets out a shout, and his mentor says they're going to stop the duel. Even though he used magic, he was still way too slow compared to his opponent, and couldn't beat him. The mentor asks his student to look at their feet, and asks if he can compare the two sets of footprints. Looking closely, he starts to notice the difference in pattern between them, and one is much more trained than the other. The boss praises him for seeing that both of their footwork patterns are totally different, showing different training levels. If you drew a circle around his footprints, they wouldn't go out of range, but his students are irregular, and it wouldn't be good to have irregular footprints if you're attacking, because you need good feel and sharp observation. Since you can only decide how to attack after you figure out your opponent's movement pattern, that makes the boy reflect that the fighting field is different from specializing in magic. By moving in a circle, the footprints of the imperial fighting style are called circular steps. He says what he needs now is physical strength and foot coordination, so that's what they'll focus on for a while. Even though the boy understands he needs to improve his strength, he asks how he's going to be judged based on his movement. Laughing, the commander notices his student is in a hurry, and then plans to do something to teach him. He proposes a challenge. If he can manage to touch him with one hand while using the correct way to move, he'll win something. Only if that happens will he teach him the art of the sword the right way. That gets the boy excited, because he'll have a chance. Before he starts training what he wanted so badly, time passes, and the boy keeps warming up to do everything right, since there's no room for any mistakes in the duel he'll have. He's doing push-ups non-stop, trying to strengthen his body muscles as much as possible so he can get strong. But he still isn't tough enough to do all these hard exercises. In the end, he faceplants on the ground, unable to get back up, because he has no energy left in his body. Luckily, he's a mage and cheats, able to heal himself whenever he wants, so he can handle doing even more chest sets. Getting back up, he's still pretty tired, but he'll be able to push through a few more rounds. While he runs all around the arena to build up his stamina, the commander watches from afar to evaluate his student's performance. The trainer says his student is getting skilled, since he's focusing on the right exercises to improve. Training continues, but now it's with swords, to see how capable the protagonist is in more complicated duels. He keeps swinging the wooden sword non-stop through the air, to build up his arm muscles. With each strike, the boy gets more and more tired, until he reaches a point where he'll need to catch his breath for a moment. He reflects, cursing the emperor, because all of this is happening because of the crimes he committed. If that hadn't happened, he wouldn't have to go through all this, and in fact, he'd be in his castle. After a long day, he realizes the sun is already going down and it's time to rest. At home, he opens a blank diary with the intention of writing down some important notes. He thinks, wondering how much writing he managed to do yesterday. He writes that the aristocrats got rid of him and also defeated all his allies in a single move, and he'll remember every one of them, writing their names on an assassination list for later. After a while, he writes several names and finally closes the book, believing it's enough. The next step is to grab a kind of map he'd hidden somewhere in his room. When he opens it, he starts looking over all the places on the continent and planning his next moves. The empire named by his friend Golden Jackson is called Eurasia, an absolutely ridiculous name that makes no sense. The MC's plan is to head east the next day to push even farther. Since in his past life he hid various treasures all over the continent, they were his supposed legacy, along with the elixir, but now that he's changed bodies, he'll have to collect them one by one, alone. With a pen in hand, he scans the whole map, trying to remember as much as he can about where his treasures are and mark them. Suddenly the door opens without any warning, and someone starts coming in unannounced. That puts the protagonist on alert to see who's showing up out of nowhere. The one who barges in is the servant, once again rude and lacking manners. As he comes in, he notices his master sitting at the table, writing something he can't make out. The news the big guy wants to deliver is that the protagonist's brother has finally returned from his long 6-day trip, which scares the hero, because only 5 days have passed and he's already back earlier than expected. Getting up, startled, to check if this information is true as soon as possible, he tells the servant to run and go welcome Kevin right away. The protagonist and his servant start heading toward Kevin's room to try to understand what's going on. There, the household staff are gathered around the door, also curious to figure out what happened. Right away, the servant coughs to get everyone's attention, like he wants them to clear out. This startles the staff, who are shocked by the MC's appearance. Strangely curious, the mage asks why all the servants are gathered in front of the door. The girl explains that the young master is in terrible health right now, that's why everyone's like this, which scares the protagonist, who wasn't expecting this to happen to his brother. The young woman says she believes the boy was found by some bandits during the trip. This scares the sorcerer, who thought he'd wiped out all the wrongdoers in the area. Worried about his brother's health, he pushes to the front of everyone, trying to get into the room quickly. The first thing he sees worries him immensely, because the boy is completely wrapped in bandages. He asks permission as he enters, so he won't bother anyone with his presence. However, the blonde had been irritated for a long time and explodes in anger, stepping forward. Crying, she starts cursing the boy out with all kinds of things, and blaming him for everything that happened. Kevin is in serious condition, and it'll take a long time for him to recover because of his injuries. The boy starts examining his brother, and realizing it's like the maid said. In fact, when he asks why his brother is like this, the doctor answers that it was an encounter with wild animals. Shocked, the mage asks why that's the theory, not really believing it. Being clever, the doctor explains that the body has no sword marks, only animal bites, and he also built up fatigue, making his condition a lot worse than it already was. Right away, the protagonist thanks him for the diagnosis, and asks if there's anything he can do. Unfortunately, everything that could be done has already been done, upsetting the concubine who's worried about his health. With the plan in mind, Kohor is called, and he's told what needs to be done. Time passes, and night falls in the sick man's room. Sad, the noble spent the whole day by his brother's side, blaming himself for what happened. Suddenly, the Lord wakes up calling the name of whoever was in the room, not understanding what's going on. Seeing him struggle to pretend he's fine, the protagonist says he doesn't need to get up. Making him follow the order, he lies down in bed once again, in a lot of pain all over his body. Proud, the hero realizes the boy held out for quite a while and was really tough. Luckily, the job was done, and the green leaf was collected, keeping the promise that was made. Cold and calculating everything, the boy says his brother can finally attend the Swordsman Academy. Putting him to sleep for a day, he believes that when he wakes up the next day he'll be better. Then he uses healing magic, aiming to treat the fatigue and internal injuries as much as possible. Green light lights up the whole room, while also restoring the bouquet of flowers left in the corner. After finishing his healing work, the protagonist picks up the bouquet again, and hugs it. Pretty much forgetting his brother's injuries, he's extremely happy, because now he has all the ingredients to do what he wants. He starts walking out of the room with the bouquet in his hands. From afar, the concubine sees the protagonist walking away with his servant, and it really annoys her. But a few hours pass, and the night keeps lighting up the Baron's entire castle. In the wizard's room, a potion is being brewed. Using his magic circles, he uses a fire skill to heat the pot with the mixture. It's been a while since the boy smelled this scent, believing that other mages will create a similar elixir as time goes on. But he knows they'll all be fakes, since the original recipe was never revealed. The process needs freezing and burning over and over, making the color change and the smell spread through every room. When drinking the elixir, the boy has to be precise, otherwise the magic could blow up his heart and kill him. The problem with a magical explosion is that it makes the user unable to control the effects, and magical control isn't based on physical strength, but on mental power and sensitivity to the world. Even knowing all the theory and being an experienced man in his past life, he still trembles with fear of doing this process. He swallows the elixir with the goal of increasing his power and going back to what he was before, but in the middle of the sip, he's startled, because the liquid has a weird taste it shouldn't have. When he finishes drinking, he slams the bottle on the table, still a little dizzy from the taste. A purple energy starts to pour out of his body, heating him up, making it seem like he's going to melt. Weak and worn down, he starts walking around the room, trying to find help. Almost collapsing with no strength, he grabs the doorknob to try to pull himself up. That red energy leaves his body in extreme pain, giving him a pounding headache. Managing to stand, he still feels like his heart is pounding in a way that could explode at any moment. Being experienced, he knows a way to control this effect, and sits down in a meditation position. Now the process is focusing and enduring the mental pain of his heart burning up. Trying to increase the cycle, the mage focuses in meditation to raise his powers. After a long while, the purple aura forms a dragon, finally the strength the protagonist wanted from the start. Thirsty for more skill and magical power, he orders the magical forces to give him more output. The purple energy keeps lighting up the whole room and boosting the boy's power. A level of pressure compared to the pain he felt when awakening the 8 circles is nothing compared to this. His whole body hurts like it's time to go to heaven, making it really hard to endure. The protagonist's heart keeps sending energy into his body to increase the output. Having to endure the pain, the boy realizes a new circle is emerging. This is unbelievable, which makes him wonder what's happening, because this wasn't a good time for it to happen. The pain of all the elements together is making his body suffer a lot. The hero is managing to endure and keep 2 gates open at the same time, making the 5th ring appear from the 4th, known as the Blue Miracle Solution. The 5th domain of circles can't be conquered, and in the Magic Tower, mages who don't reach this level aren't called wizards. Wizards have more power than any army, with authority equivalent to warriors. This is more than a surprising feat for the prince, who wonders if he might be able to activate more rings. Unfortunately, forming 2 circles at once seems really difficult, and from the 6th on he would need concentration. After it wears off, his body starts giving off a really rotten smell. That points to some kind of bad reaction or something going wrong, freaking the MC out and making him scared. Desperate, he throws his clothes on the floor to check the lower part of his torso. As soon as he takes everything off, you can see his body is way more muscular and better looking now. When he looks at his shirt, a dirty brownish stain is covering pretty much the whole fabric. When he looks toward the light, the hero starts to feel uneasy, like the brightness is bothering him. And even though it's clothes dried by magic, it looks like it hasn't been cleaned in hundreds of years. Curious to see what his body looks like, and afraid something went wrong, he walks up to the mirror, still really dirty from the whole process. He looks at himself, shocked, trying to figure out when he got so strong. His muscles are toned now, giving him a body that could be the strongest among mages and warriors. That surprises him, because he reached the awakened stage, on top of gaining 2 more power circles. The awakening phenomenon only happens to people who deal with magic, pushing the body past natural limits. And most of the time, the skeleton is remade, and the muscles grow exponentially. The result is a muscular body, but it causes that rotten odor coming off the skin. Being that powerful, he can use body cleaning magic to get rid of all the grime. Happy he pulled it off, he starts laughing and says he doesn't need to train so hard to get powerful. The next morning, the cook tells the young man breakfast will be ready at sunrise. All of a sudden, the cook gets startled when he gets his first look at his boss, looking different. On the dirt road, someone falls to the ground for some reason that isn't explained. 2 peasants are walking near the mountain, when they get scared by all the noise from the debris. Afraid, they wonder where all that noise is coming from, and guess maybe it's thunder. In reality, what caused all of it was the hero's shock magic, which started destroying the entire peak. A blast of rock fragments starts rushing toward him, and he's cornered. Being an experienced mage, he activates his spell called Ice Field to freeze everything around him and save himself. A huge wall of purple energy covers the area, stopping the debris from hitting the protagonist and killing him. The energy orb is so powerful, it throws all the stones far away, tanking every impact from the destruction. Even so, the impact was so strong it's still causing damage all over the mountain. From far away, the whole scene can be seen because of the smoke left in the area, and the ice from the magic. Looking at what he did, he realizes he managed to do what he planned, and thinks it should be good enough now. The ice wall completely held back all the rocks, so they can be used later, following the goal he had in mind. Suddenly, without explaining anything, the boy activates the shockwave again and aims at the wall. Ironically, when it breaks, icy spikes shoot toward the boy, showing that today just isn't his day. Annoyed at what's happening, he starts thinking again about what magic he's going to use to defend himself. The sharp spikes start falling to the ground, stabbing into the hard earth where they land. With solid footwork, he manages to dodge all the hits at high speed. He uses a spell that makes him even faster, letting him jump from spike to spike. The magic he's using is Circular Step, along with the training he did days ago, which made him pretty agile. Only a few seconds pass during all of this, and finally, the noble manages to escape all the impacts. Getting a bit tired after doing all that, and spending a lot of mana on all the spells and dodges. With a smile on his face, he's happy for managing to complete his first challenge. After the morning training, the protagonist heads to the barracks to finally call his teacher for the challenge, which surprises him, because it hasn't been many weeks since the boy started training, and he already thinks he's good enough to go through this. He's startled to realize the kid has already managed to master the skill, but a promise is a promise. The protagonist will have only 3 minutes to reach his trainer, until the very last grain of sand falls. Even if his student said he understands, there's still one more thing to explain before everything starts. If he fails to succeed in 3 minutes, he'll get a harsh punishment when he leaves the fight. A little scared, the noble can't back out anymore, and has to follow through with his revenge plan. To make things fair, promise you won't use magic this time, and you'll only test the awakening effects. Finally, the man flips the hourglass and says the test has started, letting the time run. Like magic, the MC bursts forward at high speed to close in on his target. He suddenly appears right behind the man, going full throttle as he runs. He throws his first shot at the face, but it gets dodged without much trouble. Without giving the target time to breathe, he's already turning and setting up another attack, hoping to end the clash fast. The footwork from both of them is like a dance, slipping past each other. But once again, the hit doesn't land, and the hero almost falls because of the miss. Being experienced, the mentor catches that moment of imbalance, and starts setting up a plan. With great rhythm and footwork, the protagonist manages to steady himself and stay on his feet. Once again the soldier dodges, leaning his body back before the hand can touch him. Right then, brutally, he grabs his student's fist with all his strength. With one muscular arm he spins him down toward the ground, throwing off his timing. Losing a lot of the hourglass time, the protagonist slams into the ground and drags through the dirt. That hurt like hell, and came out of nowhere, and he starts thinking about what he'll do next. With a smile on his face, the mentor jokes that he never promised he wouldn't hit in this fight. Getting up, the protagonist thinks and says he gets the deal. But he doesn't stop, because he doesn't want to give defeat any time, and he keeps running at full speed while yelling. Having trained a bunch of warriors already, this doesn't surprise the captain at all, and he stays neutral. As he closes in, he throws a punch into the kid's chest, sending him flying from sheer muscle power. Then he follows up with a kick to the same spot, pushing him even farther away. The hits were so strong they made the MC stop almost at the wall, leaving a trail of sand everywhere. With his heart aching, he thinks he can't see any opening to attack, but he can't give up no matter what, and he starts moving in again. Even though he's hurting, he reaches his hand toward the target's face one more time. Unfortunately, it's not fast enough, because the man counters and knocks the strike away. The hourglass is running out, and there must be less than 10 seconds left before the duel is lost. That scares the sorcerer, because he realizes his defeat is getting closer with every millisecond that passes. Something annoys him, and with his sharp senses, he notices something in the distance. What he noticed was his opponent rushing in at full speed to throw a punch, a hit strong enough to lift him up without any trouble. The blow almost stuns the boy, who's still aching all over because of the elixir process. When he hits the ground, more time is lost, putting him even closer to failure. He drops from the pain, lying completely flat in the sand. Getting up, not giving up, he's still ready for more attempts until he wins. Unfortunately, the soldier shows that the hourglass is already empty, and time is up. He coldly announces the boy's defeat. Even though he failed, the kid gets praised, and the mentor says the performance was spectacular, since nobody expected the kid to grow that much in such a short time. Starting today, for 10 days, the training will be to build strength. So next time, the protagonist should think carefully before challenging him to a fight. When the day's training ends, night falls on the mansion and lights up the whole area. Exhausted, the first thing he does before even taking a shower is flop onto the bed just to breathe. His body is sore, making him wonder if the loss is because he doesn't have that much experience. On top of that, he wonders if there's still something missing in the awakening to keep up with the mentor. Because of that, he hasn't slept the last few days so he can practice the circular step. On the nearby mountain, he practiced dodging giant animals and even wild boars. Tired, he thinks this isn't the time to practice footwork, and he needs a faster way to do it. Annoyed, he wonders why his friend, back then, created something like this that only makes his process of becoming a warrior harder. Thinking a bit, he wonders who created a technique even stronger than Jackson's. That man was called Hector, the Sword King. His footwork skills were unmatched, to the point they even made life hard for the Golden One. That man was banished from the kingdom. Even though he won a duel with Jackson, because of the war it was necessary to get rid of him. It'd be great if, right now, he were still alive to help plan out all the revenge. Since your buddy is gone, the only man who can teach you anything right now is Hector. After thinking for a while, you go over to a bookshelf and look for the one that matches your plans. The black tome holds dark magic the sorcerer had never studied before, and as expected, it's full of archetypes, and it's a relief that there aren't any torn pages. Planning to read it all, you sit down in the chair and start looking carefully, page by page. You start reading that the guillotine that brings evil is truth's attempt to expose all the world's lies. That's the core of restoration magic, which makes its users healthier. The magic is placed into the book to activate the powers and make everything work again. Finally, all the tears and problems are being restored, thanks to the powerful restoration magic that was cast. After a few minutes of the effect working on the pages, the boy wonders if it worked. Finally, opening the book, he can read every line, realizing his spell worked really well. The reading is going to be long, so the boy spends the whole night reading while the moon lights everything up. After a long time reading, he studies the black magic inside the tome very carefully, and even with a lot of magic, bringing someone back perfectly is really hard, considering his rebirth was basically some kind of coincidence. Only able to open the gates to hell on full moon days, he also needs a sentimental object. There's a problem. Even though the moon is completely full today, he writes with chalk all over the floor and realizes the biggest problem in this ritual is the swordsman's legacy. He writes line after line all over his room, trying to make a perfect pentagram. After a good while, he places candles around it and writes runes along every curve of the star. At last, he places his hand on the center of the ritual spot to charge it with powerful restoration magic. Speaking words unknown in today's language, he starts reciting the powerful spell. He charges the pentagram with a lot of force, with a red aura. Luckily, the boy is powerful and manages to do the ritual correctly, and it starts pulling in the soul he asked for. After some time, a spirit starts to form there, answering Hell's call. With a smile on his face, watching the footsteps, the hero says it's been a long time since he's seen his friend. Scar is the name of the spirit of exchange, created from the greediest desires. During the ritual, the protagonist asks if the summoned person didn't see the name written before appearing. Annoyed and huffing, he says he wants to know who dared to write those words. Laughing, the mage says he knew his friend cared about their friendship, even if he acted like he didn't, really strictly. That leaves the toad startled, wondering what the boy is talking about. He introduces himself, explaining he changed bodies because of the situation he was in, but that he's the same Henry he knew. Seeing his buddy doesn't believe him, he starts talking about the trade sacrament that got struck by lightning. That scares the spirit, who's shocked by the noble's knowledge of those events. Besides that, there was also the trade involving the Shadow Kingdom's canine tooth and a bunch of others. Shouting, the toad keeps getting suspicious, because he knows those people went to heaven a long time ago. Asking for proof, he says he'll only believe the boy is who he says he is, if he shows a bit of magic. This is the perfect chance for the hero to prove who he is and wipe out any suspicion of lying. Closing his hand into a fist and holding it up, he starts focusing to activate a powerful magic. The first thing he does with his hand is a small blue flame that lights up the whole room. Being experienced at this art, he forms a small dragon with the fire and the use of pyromancy. But the spirit still doesn't believe it means anything, because he doesn't understand what happened. Unfortunately, the story is really long and he doesn't want to explain it right now, but it's still good to see his buddy alive once again. Out of his mind, the animal still can't believe the mage's rebirth, saying that's an even bigger surprise. Actually, the protagonist didn't call him just to say hi, and there's a much bigger plan behind what he's doing right now. Being a merchant, he says that since his friend is an old customer, he'll help him with whatever he wants. His question is whether the frog remembers the Sword King named Hector, the only person who ever made Golden Jackson drop to his knees. Luckily, he does remember, which makes everything easier to explain, and makes it possible to ask for his legacy. That's a weird request, since a legacy is something really abstract that's only useful for memorials. What the protagonist asks is whether his friend can get this item through a shop. However, the frog sees the state his buddy is in, and realizes he hasn't even made it past the 5th circle. Thinking his older client doesn't have anything valuable to offer in return right now, and being strict about it, the creature says he won't go easy on his friend just because they haven't seen each other in a long time. He'll charge the normal price. Saying that's the best he can do, he asks if that might be enough to interest the buyer. He says he'll listen to what he has to say, but first asks what's making him so confident. With a smile on his face, the mage asks if his buddy isn't curious to understand how he was revived all by himself. Obviously, the animal gets curious to understand that rebirth process, trying to gain even more ground in this deal. The hero asks again if he's interested. However, the item being asked for is very valuable to both of them, since a successful rebirth is very hard to pull off. To be honest, the frog in his entire life has never witnessed anything like that. That's the protagonist's bargaining chip, and he'll pay him as soon as he gets what he's asking for. As expected, he can't fool one of the smartest men to ever walk the earth. Being a powerful spirit, he starts summoning the requested item through the use of magic. From the bottom of his stomach, he starts pulling out, in a disgusting process, the swordsman's legacy. Finally, he opens his mouth and shows his slimy tongue with an ornate ring on it. This is the king's wedding ring, known for having been given to the kingdom's famous princess. Disgusted by the whole scene, the boy says that if it doesn't work with this item, nothing else will. He takes the object out of his mouth, still all dirty and slimy, and extends his arm, handing it to his client. Before touching it, so he doesn't get covered in slime, the sorcerer activates a cleaning spell on the ring to restore it to its best condition. The protagonist feels extremely grossed out, because his friend's saliva is green and slimy, like a worm's. Luckily, when he takes the ring, he's happy, saying he did all of this with black magic. That startles the frog, who doesn't really understand why any of this. Once again, the mage says that the secret to the resurrection, on the day his execution happened, is something else. Realizing he was in some random room as soon as he regained consciousness, he started thinking about what could have caused it. Looking around, he noticed he had a necromancy book and a chicken in his hands. This body he's using is that of a necromancer who failed to activate the ritual and lost his soul. The explanation continues, with the MC saying he was restored because of the book and decided to read it. Either way, it was a strange, lucky coincidence. Luckily, the kid's mistake brought the sorcerer back to life, and that's all that's known about the resurrection. That pisses the frog off, because he traded one of his most valuable items for an explanation that gives him no advantage. With a smile on his face, the protagonist asks what his buddy's problem is, since he was being honest. Annoyed, the frog says he forgot what kind of person his friend was from the start, which makes him say he shouldn't have made that kind of mistake. Shouting that, even so, even after being reborn, a person's nature can't be changed. The protagonist realizes he once again came out ahead, because he's a slick guy and smarter than everyone else. Before leaving, the frog spits his disgusting slime near his client's foot, because he's disgusted by him. He steps into the center of the ritual once again to be sent to the spirit world, and rest. He's taken back to hell while leaving a trail of his magenta slime on the floor. With a smile on his face, the protagonist jokes that the seller is pretty cute. He looks at his chubby hand, the legacy ring of the great Sword King. He's happy, because he believes and hopes he won't have any trouble resurrecting him. But still in the middle of the night, as soon as the animal leaves, the hero starts to feel some pain. It's clear he dropped the ring on the floor, while a black sludge spills around it, dirtying everything. The muscular guy figures this blood should be enough to pull off the ritual properly. He grips his cut wrist as hard as he can while pushing through the pain. He starts chanting words that are impossible for normal people to understand. After all that, the area starts giving off a red energy and making the blood evaporate. That also causes a huge burst of light that blinds and stuns the hero for a few seconds. In the ritual, a big blue wall forms, covered in weird symbols. Staring as hard as he can, he notices that this gate is the entrance to the world called the Nether. From inside it, as it opens, a shadowy figure with terrifying red eyes starts to come out. Sharp as always, the protagonist realizes the one coming out is the great Hector, the King of Swords. Even dead, he's still one of the most iconic people in the world. Even as just a spirit, the great warrior's form is still imposing, wearing his armor. Looking at him is really hard for the mage, even though he's powerful and has endured worse. The sight of Hector is haunting, and at the same time fascinating, because of his metallic facial features. The moment the spirit opens his eyes, he looks furious and itching to fight to the bitter end. The first thing he says when he comes to is that it's been a while since he felt fresh air. The boy says he's had this item the whole time, and claims it's been a long time since he last saw the Lord. That freaks him out, because he doesn't know who the boy in front of him is, saying they've never met before. The MC introduces himself, saying the two of them had a really intense encounter, and says his name, making the warrior remember the old mage. Thinking he's being clever, Hector says he won't be fooled by that, because the boy in front of him doesn't resemble the old man at all. Out of patience, the MC says it's a long story, and even with all the evidence, asks if he even wants an explanation. That annoys him a bit, and he goes quiet, thinking about what to say next. Luckily, there's no reason for any kind of conflict, and the protagonist explains he already went to heaven and was brought back with dark magic. The soldier realizes the person in front of him isn't just anyone, and he didn't know someone like that could handle dark magic. It's explained that this wasn't done by the sorcerer, but by the young mage, who lost his soul in the process. Since those people were wiped out, the world has changed a lot, even managing to achieve the unification of the continents. On top of that, it said the last few years haven't been very good, even after building the empire and becoming a hero. All of that was lost after the son of the great Golden Jackson ordered the destruction of countless people. It's funny for the spirit to think heroes were taken out by an incompetent tyrant, making his death have been for nothing. That's how the mage feels too. He couldn't sleep from how angry he was about what was happening in the empire. This is going to be his chance at revenge, making the spirit wonder why he was brought there. It'd be great if he wanted to join in, but unfortunately the sorcerer isn't skilled enough to bring him back to life. The question that won't go away is whether Hector was brought there just for flattery, because so far he's not seeing any use for it. The protagonist's original plan is for the great swordsman to teach the art of the sword. Some time passes while the reborn one thinks over the mage's request. Finally, he asks what he's talking about, because he had the nerve to summon him just for that. What confuses him even more is the fact that the boy was a sorcerer in his past life, and in this one too. Luckily, the protagonist's body has a warrior's blood and also enough magic to be powerful. Someone who, in this life, is interested in working with swords. Kind of ironic, since it was the old man who killed the warrior. Thankfully, the MC says he'd gladly apologize for everything that happened in the past. When the man wonders why he'd need apologies, he starts laughing, because he doesn't believe it. He says jokingly, the protagonist seems way more emotional than he looks, and doesn't care. It's also explained that the old man was always loyal, and had faith in his emperor from the start of the reign. Time passes, and he takes it all in, saying he worried all this time for nothing. It's said that in the past magic classes always had necessary concerns, asking if the ring was some kind of trophy. Afraid of being misunderstood, the boy explains it's not a trophy, and that he prepared all of this in honor of his opponent. Hector says the boy still keeps making him laugh, wondering if he isn't some kind of bard or poet. The sorcerer explains he was the only person to defeat Jackson, and also one of the only ones who still gives him any reason to honor this world. He seems to have a pretty romantic and emotional side to his personality when he says those lines. When he's called the Sword King, the spirit finds it provocative, because he didn't want to be called that. Luckily, he'll listen to his summoner's request, but he won't teach all his arts for free. Being sharp, the boy says he already knew it wouldn't be that easy, and asks what the man wants. He asks for something that seems almost impossible, like it's child's play to live once again, leaving the noble speechless, not understanding, because that's a very difficult task. It's explained that the warrior wants to live once again in the world, and believes the boy is a mage who's already experienced second chances. The night keeps moving along, while both of them stay silent, not knowing what to say. With fear and sorrow in his voice, the reborn says that would be very hard and basically out of reach. Annoyed, the gray one says that if it's really impossible, then there's no deal, and the one losing something isn't him. Trying to win the argument, he pretends he's fine with it, and turns around, saying he'll have to find a different way. Everything goes according to plan, because the spirit starts to panic when he sees he's not winning and asks once again to be brought back. Begging, he says that if he can pull that off, he'll teach the art of the sword, and even help with revenge against the emperor. Even though he really wants to, the protagonist can't do it. Angry, he yells, saying this is bullshit, and that the person in front of him is tricking him. Once again, the noble says he's the only one losing something by not doing it, so he'd never lie. Which starts to convince the spirit that what the man is saying is true. It's hard because necromancy and resurrection are different kinds of magic, and he doesn't have any knowledge of it. That's why the boy can't bet his life on this kind of situation, knowing he can't fulfill the deal. It's sad, because if the spirit goes back to the netherworld again, he doesn't know how long he'll have to wait. That surprises the MC, who realizes hell is way more horrible than he thought. Scared, he yells for help again, saying he prayed to God his whole life, but he doesn't exist. After all, ever since he left, the world has been nothing but despair and unstoppable darkness, and he's terrified, looking for a solution, not knowing if it'll work. It's said that the MC's resurrection wasn't complete, even though it reached a high level. Even so, dark magic can tell different stories and do whatever it wants with the world. The question the muscular guy asks his summoned one is whether he knows some kind of necromancer, surprising him with the question. The rumor is that those people have the power to bring the dead back to life and make them walk. The concept is the same as leeches, since after their transformation, both have immortality, and can even look like skeletons, but they're still human, and with their abilities, they can bring people back to life and become undead. If they followed them, they could possibly get information about more methods. As hard as this operation is, it's way better to be undead than to be someone stuck in an eternal prison of a world. Terrified, afraid of going back again, he asks the protagonist to promise he'll keep that promise, and that he'll be cursed if he can't. Luckily, the boy says he doesn't need to worry, because he'll do this job with all his effort. The hand that was holding the valuable ring starts to throb with a purple energy. When he opens his hand, he notices that this energy is coming straight from the object, which is going full blast, lighting up the room with its glow. It's explained that the ring has a curse, and the man had nothing at the time, so he had to do it. He doesn't understand what's happening, looking worried, afraid of what might happen. Understanding his companion's side, he says he'll call him at night, on full moons, and he wants him to be waiting to train. Actually, there's no need to wait at all, and they can start training right away. That same night, both of them go to the training barracks to improve the MC's skill. It's impressive that the boy is training 2 sword styles, which is going to leave his body even more exhausted. The only solution to that is to learn both arts at the same time, so he won't get so tired. Laughing a bit, he says it'd be way better to try than to just keep talking. The trainer's first orders are for the boy to follow him and always stay in a battle stance, just like he showed. Unfortunately, he's got good posture, but being experienced with the circular step isn't a good thing right now. Right now, the only thing left is to try this new style, wondering what it's called so he can lock it into his mind. He says it doesn't need a name for that kind of thing, and it gets nicknamed the Hector Step. As they start training, the spirit jokes that the name sounds great. He starts running at full speed while trying out this new kind of step, noticing it's way more uneven compared to the circular one, like he's dancing across the ground. This time, he's going to make sure he can land a hit on his opponent. All of this is happening in the middle of the night. Throughout the training, the muscular guy suffers through it, hitting the ground a few times. They say he should have rested a bit before starting to train this hard, since he doesn't have that much stamina for it, making the spirit realize the boy wants to defeat the emperor at any cost. While he's sweating on the ground, he asks what his trainer means by those lines. Hard work never fails when it comes to swordsmanship. The more you practice, the stronger you get. Before they go back to the lessons, the warrior asks him to forget that goal and asks what the plan is after defeating the captain of the guard. Without wasting a second, the protagonist says his next step is to master Auror. The boy is taking baby steps, and that attitude is going to make a lot of people burst out laughing. Confident, he says that once he gets that power, he'll become one of the most powerful magic warriors. And that's going to be unavoidable, making the summoned one, the teacher, one of the greatest fighters on the continent. Something like that is dangerous, but that's the wrong way to think, because that way they'll be able to push magic levels way further. Finally, the MC gets tired of the talk and asks them to stop and keep going with endless training. The two of them stay in that place all night, until the sun comes up and lights up the whole continent. Once again, with barely any rest, the training with the Imperial swords keeps going. Even though he's experienced, all of this is really exhausting for the hero. Finally, after a lot of effort and time spent training, Byrne admits he was finally defeated. Surprised by that, the hero looks around, wondering if he really won. It's confirmed that yes, he beat the captain of the guard, following his own rules. That makes the sorcerer happy, showing on his face that it's one more step closer to his plan. He holds out his hand to shake his first trainers, praising him a lot, becoming pretty good friends along the way. The man says his student also gave it everything he had. A lot of time has passed since the first lesson with Hector, and he managed to practice his Imperial sword skills in the morning, and at night he practiced non-stop, doing that for 3 months, until he mastered the skills. His goal at the moment was to defeat Byrne, who was a sword specialist. Finally, he figures it's the right time to leave this mansion and chase his goals even farther. Before letting the boy go, he said he has to admit he was wrong, praising the kid as a misunderstood genius, which leaves him surprised by the stats his trainer gave him. But the man can say that with confidence, because he only taught the basics and the boy turned it into a totally different style. Happy, he thanks him for the compliments, realizing it's the pure truth from his friend. He'd stay there longer to fix his weak points in training, but he can't waste that time. It's pretty obvious that training Auror is something you can't master with simple practice. But knowing that, the boy says he has a favor to ask his teacher, who's willing to listen. To his surprise, he thanks him and says he's thinking about leaving the mansion and joining the continent's army, asking if he knows anything about nobles' obligations, their aristocratic duties. These are a noble's duties: share power, put exemplary morals at society's service, and be forced to share their money. However, the family isn't subject to that system, because you need the rank of count or higher for any responsibility at that level. Knowing that, the hero says that gives him even more reason to take part, since it's a great honor for a war veteran baron to command the military. Or maybe he already has a division in mind that he wants to join, knowing the place he needs to go. The question he can't stop thinking about is where that place is, called the Forest of All Evil. He says the boy can't go there, because it's too dangerous, and the Lord wouldn't allow something that sudden. Actually, the young man got permission, and his father's condition was that he defeat the general, which he did. Which is surprising to a man who can't believe how casually the Baron allowed something like that. He thinks it's nothing but nonsense, and that he needs to talk to his boss, because he's against this rushed attitude. Annoyed, the hero says they can't stop him, because it's already done, and his plans are already in motion. The next scene takes place inside the family mansion, to talk about this decision. Talking to his boss, the man asks if he really gave the young man permission to go to that so-called Forest of All Evil. Without thinking twice, he says yes, but only if he completed a very difficult condition. To everyone's surprise, the protagonist shows up in the room, saying he's there after completing that condition, which leaves the two men shocked, because they didn't believe it could be done. Curious, he asks his servant if it's true, ordering him to make the situation crystal clear. He says it's true and that he can't do anything else, not even lie about this matter. Thinking his son wouldn't be able to do it, he slams his fist on the table, saying it's impossible. Being fair, he says he kept his promise, and asks once again to be allowed to go to the place he's wanted to go since the beginning. Worried about his student, he says the Lord can't allow such a thing, because he could get hurt or something even worse could happen. Stepping in and taking the lead in the argument, he calls out to his father, because he wants to say something very important. Asking for the chance to prove himself in this huge world, he says he needs to fight for his own goals. The Baron explains that his son doesn't know what's inside that forest because he's too young. He doesn't know the boy was an old man in his past life, and is well aware of the dangers inside that place. The Forest of All Evil has a long history, and is one of the most dangerous areas in the entire empire, because it contains all kinds of devils. Worried, he asks if his son really wants to go even knowing all that, putting everyone's lives in danger because of this attitude. Suspecting something, the hero asks if that's the only reason they won't let him go there. The only reason is because he's the heir, and his father doesn't want to lose his entire legacy, putting everything at risk by going into the forest. And no matter what they say, he's already made his decision. The next morning, he'll leave the mansion. As elegant as ever, he bows and says goodbye before leaving on the mission. He leaves the room irritated, because his friends didn't hold up their end of the deal. Slamming the door in anger, he tells himself it's goodbye to this place too. On the morning of his goal, as usual, the boy keeps training non-stop. While he trains, people talk about his trip to that so-called Forest of All Evil. Many servants are in the training area watching the MC, talking about this controversial family issue. One of the men asks if the Lord approved all this, but his real decision is unknown. Night falls once again across the continent, and the boy doesn't stop training for even a second. All of it is wearing him out. He takes a deep breath to get back the energy he spent during the day. He thinks maybe this training has already been enough, and that if he pushes too far, he won't be able to recover. Showing up out of nowhere, the Baron praises his son, saying he's never seen that sword style before. He's fought many warriors all across the continent, and being surprised by something is rare. The man asks what style that was he just saw, because from what he can tell, his son just created a new one from scratch. Without saying he trained with the spirit, he lies, saying he tweaked the imperial style to his own taste. He says that in all these years of his life, he misunderstood who his boy was, and that he's finally starting to see it now. The mage asks what his father is talking about, because he wants to understand more about his own story. It's explained that after the duel, the veteran realized the boy had more skill than he showed. In fact, the protagonist said he never meant to hide it from anyone. The only thing all this time was that he never meant to go around showing it off. Finally, the muscular guy asks what the man is doing there, at that time of night in the middle of training. With a smile on his face, the father, happy, says the child who used to be weak and innocent, grew up and became a complete warrior. The reason he's there is because he decided to respect his boy's wish, letting him go to the Forest of All Evil. Finally, the hero bows, thanking his father for giving him permission to follow his plan all the way to the end. Before letting the boy leave empty-handed, he pulls something from his coat, because he wants to hand it over. From his coat, he takes out 2 letters with a golden seal with an M written in the middle, looking like they're really important. Looking closely, the wizard is surprised, trying to understand what the point of all this is right now. It's known that people who traveled to the forest in the past became a local army, and the official high commander of Fort Killiburn is there. The one given to the boy is a letter of recommendation and enlistment, which must be delivered as soon as he sees him. To do the job right, the protagonist asks what the name of the person who should receive the letter is. His name is Esselin, one of the youngest soldiers to become a lieutenant in the world. The warrior thinks that if he can't remember that name, it means this so-called lieutenant isn't anyone important. After all the talk, the boy goes to sleep, so that the next morning he can be at his best. Everyone in the family and their servants gather at the mansion's exit, worried about the boy leaving. He says that taking just 1 horse and a few supplies will be enough, since if he takes a carriage, it'll only make everything harder. Afraid for his boss's life, the deer says the road to where he's going is very far from anywhere safe. Coming closer and saying goodbye, the Baron says this is going to be a very difficult journey, and asks his son to take care of himself. Happy for everyone's help, he also thanks his father, who's been by his side. Climbing onto the horse and heading toward the Forest of All Evil, he says goodbye to his whole family. Actually, once he's far from the mansion, he thinks it'll be goodbye to that place too, because he doesn't plan to ever come back. With that in mind, he grabs the saddle and pushes to top speed to reach his goal as soon as possible. Making the horse neigh from the pressure he puts on the stirrups, he gives it more strength to go faster. He uses a skill to boost his mount's gallop even more, cutting the time down even further. All of it together makes the animal practically fly over the ground, like lightning. Noticing that makes the boy crack a smile, happy with the idea that he'll get his revenge as soon as possible. After a few hours of travel, he stops with his horse somewhere full of trees. Before moving away and leaving his horse alone with the dangers of the place, he activates a spell called Stonehouse. Suddenly, a huge cave made of rock appears out of nowhere in the middle of the trees. Then to light everything up, he activates his light ability, so he can enter the place safely. After that, he activates the cleaning skill, wiping out all the bacteria and worms that could bother him there. Basically like a magical builder, he creates a bed out of stone using the soft stone spell. After finishing the whole process of making his home inside the cave, he goes back outside and walks up to Jade, giving her a pat on the head. Knowing his horse is intelligent, he orders her to make sure she finds her own food. It doesn't take much for the mare to understand the orders, which shows in her focused expression. To satisfy the hunger she'd been holding back all day, Jade started hunting without any mercy. After that, a week passes on the continent, and the view we have now is of the great Fort Caliburn. One of the spear soldiers guarding the place notices someone approaching the stone walls. He tries as hard as he can to see who's coming at full speed, afraid it might be an intruder. The only thing he can make out on the horizon is that the hooded figure has a yellowish-colored horse. The commander there wonders who it could be, and his guess is that maybe the capital sent a soldier. As he gets close to the gate, the hero realizes that the walls of the fort stretch for miles. The Forest of All Evil is one of the most dangerous places on the continent. All the soldiers and archers start gearing up, not afraid of anything. The protagonist gets off the horse slowly and calmly, knowing exactly what he's going to do. Before taking another step, someone orders him to stop where he is, so he won't be a threat. They order the boy to identify himself and say why he's there. Without saying a word, he starts pulling the letters out from inside his coat. Actually, what he pulls out from his clothes is something even more surprising, because it's a pyramid-shaped object. Without explaining why, he hurls the item with all the strength in his arm straight at the commander. This object, by sheer luck or maybe the thrower's accuracy, doesn't hit the soldier, who gets to live another day. After that, it drops to the ground, making a metal-on-rock clang and drawing everyone's attention. When he finally sees the object lying there, the man is completely shocked by what he's looking at. Staring at the adventurer, he wonders how this person threw something so heavy from so far away. Finally picking up the golden piece, he wonders if it's some kind of ID card. A bit of time passes until he realizes this message might be coming from some important baron. He asks the hero to wait a moment, because they're going to examine the item carefully, so they don't make mistakes. After all that checking, the gate opens, letting the MC into the fort along with his mare. The soldier apologizes for being rude, saying he was just doing his job. After that introduction, he hands the ID card back to its owner again, because he doesn't want to be treated like some random thief. It's explained that the MC isn't offended, and that actually, this is his family's ID card. It's been a long time since he's seen anyone important at his fort, since he's the head of security, and the one guarding the entrance. Once he realizes the person is trustworthy, the boy finally starts taking off his hood to introduce himself too. Finally showing his face, he says it's a pleasure to meet them, saying his name loud and clear. The first thing he says when he gets there is that he wants to enlist in the army as soon as possible. He explains he's talking about the obligations all nobles have to follow in this system, but the man didn't know a baron had a role in this method, unless there's a reason that isn't being revealed. The only way for someone who's a baron to join the army is to volunteer to enlist. The boy's next step is to go to a specific room inside the fort to talk to someone who can get him set up for enlistment. Someone apologizes for making the adventurer wait so long outside before being called in. Luckily, the nerd managed to confirm that the name on the letter of recommendation is the same as the one the commander knows. He asks the protagonist to leave all the paperwork there and follow him to another room to wrap everything up. The protagonist starts looking at the fort's decor while thinking he'd assumed the guy was just some high-ranking commander. But honestly, all of this is giving him a really good feeling that everything's going to work out and go well. The sun lights up the whole area with beams of light, making the day bright as snow. When they reach the door, the commander inside lets them in so they don't waste too much time. The soldier introduces himself and says he brought the protagonist, who wanted to enlist. The bearded giant is the commander who welcomes the MC, asking if he's the son of that baron. Being polite, he asks the boy to come closer and sit in the chair, and he thanks him for treating him well. The soldier realizes the adventurer must have been through a lot of complicated stuff to make it to this fort. He says that just by looking, he can tell the man in front of him is an interesting person. Most people on the continent are impatiently waiting for their military service to end already. He wonders why, out of all places, someone would volunteer right there, knowing it's the most dangerous area on the continent. The MC's answer is simple and clear. He says he came there because of the monsters and the challenges he has to face. It leaves the general confused, because he's never seen anyone want to take that big a risk in all his life as a leader. Once again, the boy thinks about how he wanted to enlist there because he wanted to learn as soon as possible how to deal with threats. That line makes the bearded man laugh a lot, and let out a big laugh at the boldness of his newest soldier. He spends a long time laughing, praising the boy, saying it's a great sign to see that he's honest. But this isn't the kind of place you can come to just because you've got good intentions. Even so, the mage knows that very well and says he'll have to train and prepare a lot to get used to it. With a smile on his face, the commander orders the boy to get into position, like he's challenging him. The general's room has a big glass door that looks out over the whole forest, and the forge in the back. After the fight starts, a sturdy metal sword gets slammed into the ground with full force, showing just how powerful it is. The man is a muscular giant with a sword almost as big as he is, able to cut down trees. That makes the mage wonder if that thing is even a real usable sword, because it must be insanely heavy. The soldier can hold it with one hand, saying the imperial sword art is something anyone can learn. Then he stomps the ground, charging at full speed straight at his opponent to prove a point. As he swings the sword, he explains there's a huge difference in how much effort you put into it. Seeing he doesn't have much time to defend against the sudden strike, he grabs his blade and activates his magic defense skill. Without stopping for even a second, the powerful man keeps swinging at the MC with all his strength, landing the hit. But something happens mid-swing that catches the giant's attention, and he just looks to make sure what happened. The small fragile boy manages to block the attack at the last second, even though there's a huge difference between their swords. With a smile on his face, the soldier realizes his newest employee is pretty capable and skilled at what he does. While holding back the powerful sword with his own blade, the MC asks if the testing phase is over. Actually, the general says that, honestly, he wasn't sure the kid would block the attack. So when he sees him get back up, he doesn't give him a second to breathe and readies another heavy attack with all his strength. Seeing his commander is crazy, he once again prepares his defensive magic so he can survive. The man seems focused on attacking, not noticing his surroundings. Once again, something catches the warrior's attention, and he stops as he finishes the attack, watching his opponent's defense. Using all his strength with a single blade, the protagonist manages to hold back the full power of the gigantic weapon. That leaves the commander stunned, because his rival managed to defend against his attacks twice in a row. A red-haired girl walks into the room, saying it'd be better for both of them to stop all this messing around. She says the people who come there usually disappoint him, but this time, the MC really is skilled. Seeing all of this, the girl starts thinking that this kid actually managed to defend against the commander's powerful attacks. The giant asks why the noble gave the chance to go to the academy to his illegitimate son. It's explained that he did it because he couldn't see any sign of hope in the boy, and thought it was the best thing to do. Since he heard a rumor that the only remaining hero from the Great War, named Henry Morris, died not long ago, even though he was the last legend left, he still got taken out by the cruel, vile emperor of the continent. He jokes that the boy in front of him is bold for saying the great Emperor Jackson's son is corrupt, and that's a worrying thing to say, since he's a knight and soldier who swore loyalty to the empire, and it was a pretty dangerous and weird move for the protagonist to defend a traitor in front of a lawman like that. The swordsman's argument is that he also swore loyalty to the empire. However, he's loyal only to the realm, not to the people in charge. That argument is good enough to make the giant pause for a few seconds, thinking about what was said. The two just stare at each other, while the redhead stays in the back, watching the whole scene, seeing two great adventurers in a battle of minds. What they're saying is leading up to a conflict, since their ideas are different, and the conversation is heading somewhere risky. Scaring the redhead, the general starts laughing at the kid's nerve for saying something that outrageous, laughing non-stop, thinking it's all hilarious, and nothing more than cheap entertainment. He agrees with the boy's claims and says he likes his rebellious, challenging attitude. The empire really is a mess, and it was a great idea to leave the younger brother behind and go to the academy. That leaves the MC confused, wondering what kind of family this is, thinking of someone named Kington Porum. He asks if that person isn't the second in command at the school, thinking that's really wrong, since the old guy who used to run the place was way more competent. It's explained that a long time ago, that person became the Grand Master, and the Academy's former headmaster, named Barhald, retired because he was too old. He can't believe Barhald retired at such a crucial moment in the continent's history. Kington has a lot of influence inside the Academy, which is one of the most important places to become a knight. Even so, the man welcomes the boy and says he'll take really good care of him and make sure he trains a lot. He asks if they should move on to the next test, to see just how far the adventurer's skills can really go. When the boy asks if there's actually anything to test, the man says he's just picked up a new hobby. The three of them walk side by side for a bit, heading toward a big wall of carved stone. Right away, the redhead named Tien is called over to do a task immediately. She doesn't need many words to understand what needs to be done, and presses a specific rock in the wall. That rock triggers a mechanism, making soft noises throughout the whole room. After that, the door starts to open, with blue magical beams handling the whole moving process. Finally, the door opens, and the three of them see a huge staircase going down into the depths of the earth. The staircase is long, leading underground, inside the headquarters walls, hiding something. The first to step forward is the Grand General, who isn't afraid of anything ahead of him. As he follows his newest boss, the protagonist asks if there's something important about this place for them to be walking so fast. Acting all mysterious, the man says he already told him he started a new fun hobby he wants to test right away. The room is way bigger than it looks, with corridors on both sides and lots of candles lighting the path. Once again, the commander calls his maid's attention as they look at another wall of carved stone. The girl knows where to press to activate the place's mechanisms and open another secret door. This time, the dungeon opens again, revealing yet another hidden compartment inside the fort. The first thing they notice when they look into the built war room is a pretty weird monster in the center. It looks like some kind of orc with a bunch of horns, maybe the child of some powerful demon. Its body is completely covered in sharp spikes, and its skin is rough and tough. Seeing that leaves the hero confused, because he didn't think he'd see a monster inside the fort's grounds. He thinks about why the monster is there, but unfortunately, he can't question his boss's actions right now. With his usual smile, the man asks his student how he feels after seeing a monster for the first time. The boy asks if that thing was captured alive to be brought there in secret. The man says this monster will be the boy's final test, and that if he can beat it, he'll definitely become part of the army. The boy thinks all of this is ridiculous, wondering if it isn't way too reckless to do a test like this right now. But he understands the whole process, and asks again what he's supposed to do after defeating the enemy. The only goal is to kill the thing as soon as possible, to see how skilled the adventurer really is in a real fight. He pulls his sharp blade for the fight, noticing it has a few broken parts from the impacts earlier. He thinks he's nothing but a fox trying to be a bear, something he clearly isn't. Before starting the fight, he activates his defense skill to get stronger and more likely to win. Then, with purple mana pouring off his whole body, he activates defensive magic with his aura. He charges toward the huge monster in front of him at full speed. The general watches all of it from afar to judge his soldier's skills, while his mate is worried. As he gets closer, the monster notices the hero's presence and starts turning, crazed for blood. Watching the whole scene leaves the MC confused, staring hard at his rival's face. He says he hadn't really taken the time to look closely at the devil, but he notices it's honestly really ugly. Something happens on the ground, catching the MC's attention, and he's surprised and worried. As he moves forward, he notices a circle of red runes on the floor, and doesn't really understand why it's there. Actually, since he's very experienced, after a few seconds of thinking, he realizes this magic is some kind of barrier keeping the thing trapped in place. While he thinks about what the runes are for, the beast doesn't stop and rushes at its opponent, wanting to tear him apart completely. Seeing he has only a few milliseconds to get away from the blow, he activates his skill called Haste to escape and dodge in time. He manages to dodge the powerful punch that destroys the entire floor where it lands. The impact was so strong that the force of the punch still threw the boy back, and he struggles to stay on his feet. With energy to spare, the demon keeps pushing forward, while he readies powerful attacks with only one thing on his mind. Having trained a lot for moments like this, you flip your sword around to pull off some mysterious attack. You keep your eyes locked on a single spot so you don't mess up the strike you're about to land. Your steps are quick because you spent the last 3 months training non-stop, day and night. You swing the sharp blade in front of your face to confuse your enemy and keep him from guessing your next move. You land, along with some magic, a powerful hit on the monster's body, dealing seriously high damage. You can tell from the pain on your opponent's face that the blow hit dead on, leaving him weaker. Unfortunately, it still wasn't enough to defeat him, which only gets him more pumped for the fight and even more irritated, thirsty for blood. You manage to dodge by dropping your body low, avoiding getting sent off to a better world. You joke that your opponent is way too slow with his attacks, and that now the fight is really going to start. That line catches the beast off guard, since it wasn't expecting its rival to be so skilled and confident in a fight. The boy's strategy is to slam a powerful headbutt into the monster, dealing even more damage. The MC is happy, because everything is going well, and the chance of losing is really low, according to his mental stats. Right after that, he starts using a circular footwork technique to confuse and slip past his enemy, without him noticing. He shows up behind the monster, getting an attack ready with his sharp sword and purple magic. He realizes the beast's back is completely exposed for a fatal strike. While he readies the heavy blow, he says it's over for him, and he's about to be done for. Still using his circular step skill, he surprises his opponent by appearing behind him again. You can clearly see the shock on his face. Ready for this fight, he keeps his eyes on his target while swinging his sharp blade. He's so fast that his enemy still hasn't had time to turn around and counterattack, making this an easy chance to deal big damage without much effort. Finally, the protagonist manages to deliver the powerful strike into the monster's back, slicing off most of the spikes that were there and leaving it weaker. The hit was so strong it made the beast groan in pain, already too drained to keep fighting. Once again, the warrior, with a lot of strategy, manages to overcome any obstacle. He moves closer to the spikes he cut off, because they're going to give him an interesting item to craft something later. Looking at the black object, he thinks about how everything turned out fine, and all those months of training were worth it. Finally, he throws the black spike in the direction of his commander, to prove his victory was real, and that he deserves a spot in the barracks. The spike lands at the feet of the man who was standing far away, watching everything to see if the boy really had the skills needed. He wonders if he should bother getting rid of it so he doesn't stain the floor with any red mess. That comment makes the soldier laugh hard at the boy's audacity, acting like he owns the world. He thinks, clearly impressed, that the boy really was able to defeat one of the most dangerous monsters that had been locked up inside the fort. Walking up, he asks how he knew what he had to do to win that battle so quickly and easily, since the horns on its back were its weakness, and nobody had mentioned that to the protagonist. Explaining himself, he says it was nothing more than a really strong gut feeling, telling him to attack that spot. He explains that its skin was very tough, which made him wonder if the beast's weakness might be somewhere else. That raises suspicion in the general, who doesn't really buy the MC's excuse, wondering again if it really was just intuition. Worried, the hero asks if he'll have to go through some other tests to prove his skills and training. That's enough, and he doesn't think it would be fun to spend that long watching other people fight without doing anything. He'll handle this mess himself, and the next day the boy will start basic training for a month. Politely, the redhead calls to her commander, first apologizing for interrupting. But actually, the big guy thinks this is the perfect opportunity, and it's a great coincidence that this is happening right now. He says to let the hero start training in the middle of the process, and if he needs any backup, he'll study alone, on his own. Very honored and proud to have passed the test, the mage thanks him for the consideration, politely. The man argues there's no need for that, because it's a privilege for those who pass the test with a lot of smarts and skill. This being one of the big privileges of the strong, something most people can't even imagine. As he's leaving, he asks if he can handle things without having to worry, and the other guy says yes. He says his soldier must have been eating things he shouldn't over the last few weeks, and that he needs to be treated well. Some time passes inside the fort, and now it's time to eat a lot and get their energy back. Someone at the bar is drunk, carelessly banging a beer mug on the table. The one who's really out of control is the captain, who won't stop drinking a bottle of wine and is causing a scene. The two of them are sitting at a table loaded with food, while the big guy tells a story from his adventurous youth. With no patience for all that talking, the boy thinks that all knights have the same nature and act the same way in these situations. He doesn't care about his boss's life, but he has to listen so he doesn't get labeled as unpleasant. Desperate, he decides to activate a skill that gives off green energy from his hands. It's actually a spell that makes the target sleepy, and he fires it at the captain to finally shut him up and calm things down. But after he uses the skill, the man keeps talking about his younger days, when he used to roam the streets looking for adventure. Even with his eyes closed, the giant keeps talking to Henry, ignoring the spell's effect for some reason. That freaks the kid out, and he wonders how that's possible, since it's a powerful skill that can knock anyone out. It's explained that the biggest incident inside the fort was when a powerful protection spell was set up to block any kind of curse, protecting everyone there. Unable to put the captain to sleep, the boy is forced to listen to the whole conversation until the sun comes up. Suddenly a cart speeds along with people inside, heading towards some mysterious place. Inside it, the redhead wonders what the boy is going to do, since he couldn't sleep the night before and must be really tired. He says it's fine, and that she's the one who's going to have a rough time for coming along with him on this dangerous journey. Something crosses the girl's mind, and she remembers an important piece of information she needs to say before she forgets again. She pulls a stack of papers out of her bag, asking the soldier to take them and read them very carefully. Curious, before opening it, he asks what it is. The girl says she organized the basics of the lessons for him, so he won't fall behind in the middle of training. Happy, he thanks her for caring enough to make all those notes. After reading everything, for a few minutes, the boy is left speechless, with something running through his mind. Then he actually hands the paper back, saying he's already finished reading it and doesn't need it anymore, leaving the girl shocked. It's explained that he memorized it all just by looking, and he says his memory is really good. In disbelief, the girl thinks her eyes weren't lying. The person in front of her really is a genius. The horses keep running full speed, carrying the big cart toward its destination. Someone says some weird lines that catch the attention of the two inside the vehicle. Finally, they arrive at the entrance to the education corps, used to train skilled soldiers. Politely, the girl says goodbye, wishing her friend good luck and saying they'll see each other again in the near future. She then heads back to headquarters to help the captain with his duties, leaving the boy alone to study and train. The guard in charge of the gate security says the protagonist can enter the building. The two meet inside a dark room to fill out some essential information before classes start. The first thing the guard says is that, in this place, it's important to call everyone officer. Also, since the boy has an apprentice rank, he isn't allowed to speak casually with anyone outside the same rank. Rudely and very seriously, he asks if the boy understood all the information, and the boy answers loud and clear that he did. With a smile on his face, he realizes this is the first step to finally starting his life in a military setting. To make sure everything goes smoothly, and he doesn't get tripped up later, the boy says he has a question for the officer that needs to be answered. The question is whether he'll need to learn what was taught in the first week, which he missed while he was traveling. After each week, a test is given based on that same week's content. Tense again, he gets curious, wondering what happens if a soldier doesn't pass one of those tests. The good news is that it's been a really long time since anyone failed one of these exams, which is surprising. Knowing it'll be an easy win, he asks to take the test to speed up his time in the course. The officer wonders how the kid wants to take an exam without knowing what was taught beforehand. He explains that he got training from the commander and wants to try the test to see if he can pass right away. That shocks the man even more, since it's rare for someone to get one-on-one training from the captain himself. That's enough to convince him, and he says it's fine, the warrior can try. However, because he's being so bold, if he fails this important test, he'll have to be punished according to the corporation's rules. Relieved, sure he's going to win, the mage thanks the person in front of him, confident he'll pass. Not knowing the boy's abilities, the officer curses out the arrogant kid and says he's going to make his exam harder. Some time passes, and the test is about to start, finally revealing whether he's good or not. He starts looking over the questions he'll have to solve in a short amount of time. To make the whole process even harder, the officer says it's necessary to finish within the extremely short time limit. Starting immediately, the officer slams the sand hourglass on the table, letting the seconds run. With superior knowledge from his past life, he knows this corporation started focusing on quality-type questions, so he starts doing them one by one without much trouble, knowing exactly what he should write or think. Hours go by while the guard watches the kid to make sure he won't cheat somehow. Without even letting the clock reach halfway, the protagonist gets the officer's attention to tell him something important. Shocking the man, he says he finished the test in one of the academy's record times. The officer, confused, asks if the boy is already done, because he can't believe that claim. As he reads, he notices there's still more than half the sand left, showing it was a very short time. In a pretty embarrassing situation, the bald guy starts calmly grading the paper. His red pen scribbles across the page and marks the questions that are correct. When he finishes, everyone is shocked, because he got a perfect score, something that's almost impossible. Shocking, the officer congratulates the boy for getting the top score, and says it's a relief. He's told that starting the next day martial arts classes will begin, so he's got plenty of time to relax for the rest of the day. After understanding everything he needed to, he says goodbye and leaves to keep pursuing his goals. Starting to like the boy, the officer understands why he got training with the commander. It's revealed that the protagonist got a perfect score on a test for commanders of a mid-level army, without even knowing it. Henry was becoming famous all across the Academy's territory, and on the continent. A good while passes, and the young adventurer is already in different clothes from a soldier, following the educational corps standard. The supervisor on duty asks the cadet to introduce himself to everyone on the field and break the ice. In simple words, he says his name and says it's a pleasure to meet everyone, making the crowd clap excitedly for him. The trainer says they should start with close-range combat, but asks his student to step forward. Since it's the first day, it's good to push his body to the limit, because the next test will be to check his skills in battles, keeping the fight going until someone falls. Some time passes, and the fight begins. The first challenger is a blonde, muscular boy, facing off one-on-one in the fighting arena. The tension rises. Bracing his arms, the MC activates his hand-to-hand fighting stance. The same happens with the opponent, who starts circling the battlefield to try to get a better angle. Suddenly, something happens that catches the MC's attention, creating a big opening to attack. Something weird happens. He notices his arm growing abnormally, wondering what's causing it. But luckily, he realizes his enemy's starting position is really bad, giving him a big advantage. His arm goes back to normal again, but the hero holds his position to land a clean hit. Eager and very aggressive, the blonde keeps pushing forward, winding up a strong punch, but to his surprise, he gets counterattacked. The MC manages to dodge by just seconds. Even so, the opponent's hand hits his face with full force. But it was only meant to scare him, because it didn't do that much damage, giving him an opening to crouch and dodge the next blow. All of this makes the cadet think about what the point of that attack was. Without even a second to breathe, the fighter charges in, winding up a powerful strike. Using everything he knows about hand-to-hand combat, the protagonist loads up a punch with all his power and speed. He lands it square in his enemy's face, dealing insane damage, hitting straight into the opponent's neck, who gets completely dazed from the impact. The hit is so strong it sends him flying a few meters away, already basically beaten. Sealing the win for the protagonist, the rival faceplants into the ground, ending the fight in a humiliating way. All the other students were watching this super intense fight, while the guards supervised from a distance. It's impressive to all the soldiers, who weren't expecting such a quick fight. Meanwhile, a preppy-looking guy watches everything without showing any reaction, and honestly, he's got an envious look on his face. Everyone starts talking about how the powerful cadet got knocked out, which is weird, since he was known for being strong. It's explained that out of all 20 soldiers, the hero just beat the one with the third highest hand-to-hand combat ranking. Looking closely at the boy's body and muscles, the trainer watches carefully to understand his strengths and weaknesses in training. What's even more surprising is that on top of all the strategy, he managed to beat the rival cadet with a powerful, accurate punch, making the trainer, already very experienced, wonder who this rookie is and why he's so skilled. Knowing talent when he sees it, the instructor asks the next opponent to step into the fighting arena. Another win for the protagonist, and he's not even close to breaking a sweat. All the best opponents were put up against the boy, leaving only a few with good scores left to fight. After several fights in a row, he starts wondering who the opponent is this time. By his count, that was the 9th person he's taken down. And even though this is a new feeling, Hector, his trainer, really is an impressive, incredible person. His hope was that the aggressive martial arts style could be used in this fight, but it didn't work the way he wanted, or should have. The next opponent, named Ronan, is called to step forward, and finally another battle is about to happen. It's the blonde guy who had that jealous look earlier, showing off all his ripped muscles. It's explained that this guy got the highest score in the whole academy so far, making him a worthy opponent. With his eyes locked in, the boy thinks his main task right now is to beat this opponent to climb to the number 1 spot. However, Ronan, knowing his abilities, thinks he can't lose, because he needs to keep his place as the best. He looks like some preppy knight, but in reality, he's a very skilled rank 1 warrior. Eager to see this battle happen, the trainer yells announcing it started, and it's officially on. Dropping his hand down, he signals that the fight can begin, and everyone can beat each other up until someone drops. Trying his strategy one more time, the hero brings his left hand up near the opponent's face to fake him out and counter, like the last few times. Being very experienced, Ronan has already seen this strategy in the earlier fights, and probably won't fall for such an easy trick. The MC wonders if being at the top of the class really puts him on that different of a level. Pretty proud of his skills, he tells himself he'll have to fix his opponent's pride. Taking his circular step as soon as the fight starts, he tries to gain an advantage to land a clean, fast hit, but his opponent is quick and notices the move in time, making it really hard to land a surprise strike. Ronan quickly turns his face toward the MC, ready to defend and counter. He lifts his leg as high as he can, hoping to attack the boy, who manages to block at the last second. The protagonist manages to protect himself, but still takes a heavy hit to the forearm. He rethinks his strategies and is sure he underestimated his opponent, thinking it would be easier than it really is. He tries to figure out the best way to beat Ronan and end the fight fast. He realizes the blonde guy really is built different from everyone else, not just some random opponent. Right away, Ronan lets out a sigh, like he's got a plan in mind, and finds this whole fight boring. After that, he starts moving toward the hero, and the vibe shifts. The fight is finally going to get aggressive. Right away, the MC takes a circular step to try. He dodges and backs away from the opponent, in time to counter with a punch. But the other guy has his own strategy too. He uses magic or some other ability, leaving trails of energy behind as he moves forward. He suddenly shows up right in front of the mage, who wasn't expecting such a fast burst from his rival. As he watches the punch coming in, he realizes the preppy guy used a different, unfamiliar military-style step. The hit lands square on the boy's arm, and he manages to block in time to avoid something worse. All of this starts to piss the MC off, and he curses at his opponent, using that anger as fuel. He throws a powerful counterattack, but unfortunately it gets blocked, since both warriors have very similar skills. Right after that, not giving him a second to breathe, the muscular preppy guy throws another kick aimed at his face. To catch him off guard and not let him memorize his style and movement pattern, he charges straight at his target. They both think the same thing and hit each other at the same time, sending each one flying in opposite directions. The mage is pretty beat up, because he thought this fight would be way easier and started out confident. He still looks close to his peak and keeps pushing forward with a blank expression, like he's not having much trouble. In fact, to take his opponent down, he grabs him by the leg and tries to slam him to the ground with full speed and power. That pisses the protagonist off, and he realizes that if he doesn't do something, he's going down and probably losing everything. Unfortunately, he can't react in time, and hits the ground with full force, while the blonde keeps the upper hand. Winding up a heavy punch with all his muscles, he says this is the end of the fight. Desperate, the sorcerer lets out a shout as he wonders if he's really going to let everything he's achieved these past months be lost in such a humiliating way. But, angry and focused, he tells himself he won't let that happen, and that he'll strike back in time. He uses a powerful green aura spell that gives him a chance to turn the tables. The skill's name is Light Grasses, which reduces the target's weight, making him scream in pain as the magic is cast. That hit makes the blonde's weight drop, making it easy to throw him around like a doll. That's exactly what the MC does. He returns the attack he took, and starts yanking the warrior. Knocking the boy to the ground without much trouble, he comically swaps their roles. Using all his power to secure the win, he cancels the spell while hurling his opponent toward a wall. That makes the world's physics get weird, and boosts the impact damage. It makes all the soldiers unable to believe what they just saw with their own eyes. Even the trainer is left speechless, seeing that his academy's best student up to that point was beaten in a painful way. He stands there for a few seconds, staring at the fallen body, until someone calls out to him. Seeing everyone shaken by the scene, the MC asks them to announce the results already, because he wants to hear that he won. Finally, they say the cadet wins and becomes the newest top one among all warriors, since he got a perfect score in both theory and combat, and also has unmatched sword skill. Night falls after all those non-stop exhausting fights, and it's time to relax. When he walks into his room, the young man notices someone on the bed, which scares him. The person is none other than his latest opponent, making the mood really tense. Even though he's pissed about being humiliated in front of everyone, the blonde turns his head, trying to ignore the protagonist. With a proud smile, the MC thinks the guy in front of him is spoiled and mad. He lost, but being pretty friendly, he walks up and asks what his real name is, suggesting they become friends. He says he wanted to get to know him better, and holds out his hand, introducing himself and saying his name. Before reaching back, the blonde watches him, like he's weighing whether he should accept it or keep holding a grudge. Luckily, he leaves all that behind, and shakes the MC's hand, introducing himself and saying his name is Ronan Poram. That shocks the protagonist, because that last name is extremely well known across the whole continent, thanks to the family's powerful history. The handshake between the former rivals is really firm, as the preppy guy introduces himself with his fancy name. The last name scares the mage again, and he remembers the Poram's history as soon as he hears it. Thinking out loud about the family in a tactless way like he doesn't care, it's explained sadly that he was adopted by that family. The head of the family is named Kington, and he defeated a lord, and became the Empire's first sword. However, even though he was an honorable man, he couldn't ignore the noble's system of obligations. Finally, the boy thinks back and realizes that's what happened in the past, since he knows a lot about the history of the whole continent. He gets why his classmate is so good at fighting on his feet, asking if he managed to master his family's skill. Then the boy asks if it isn't the same for his friend, since he'd never seen that kind of close-range combat. When the MC is asked about his identity, he says his name is Ronan, really fast, with a smile on his face kind of fake, always thinking about himself. He says he wants to become good friends with this Paran guy. It was so sudden that it makes the boy wonder why now, but it's explained that he thought he should say it in the moment, making them both laugh like they're joking around because that scene was really dumb. The rest of the night goes by with the two of them talking and getting closer and closer as friends at the academy. After several hours wasted in that long late-night stretch, morning starts to show up, not caring about who didn't sleep the night before. Surprisingly, early in the morning, you can see the former top one of the class in the battle arena, complaining that he lost again. Holding out a hand, someone asks if his opponent is really going to try the strategy of pulling a knife when he's fighting demons. He gets up saying he thinks his friend tries way too hard to show off in fights, all theatrical. Laughing at the criticism mixed with a compliment, the fighter jokes, saying those are just excuses for losing. And then in a pretty subtle bromance moment, the two stare into each other's eyes while flexing their ripped muscles. The bald guy shows up asking if any of the rookies got the grade they needed to pass the task. He explains that if they fail, they can transfer so nobody gets upset. He celebrates that training is over, and asks if everyone wants some kind of celebration with lots of meat and alcohol. Hyped that the semester is over, all the soldiers start celebrating, because they're going to rest. The two friends were leaving when something catches the young adventurer's attention, and he turns to see more clearly. The officer shows up calling the boy's attention, because he wants to say something important right away. To his surprise, it's explained that the guard commander is looking for his soldier, which is weird, because it was so sudden. Following the supervisor from the training grounds, he finds in front of a carriage, his red-headed friend waiting for him for the trip back. After talking a bit, they don't waste time and get in right away to head to their destination as soon as possible. During the trip they chat, and the girl asks how the weeks he spent studying were, with a smile on his face because he had a great time having fun and training. He thanks her, saying that thanks to his companion, it was really enjoyable. The commander, because he likes his new soldier a lot, is going to be really grateful to hear all that. She warns him so there's no misunderstanding. The reason he's being called isn't because he's the commander's favorite. Getting curious and a little worried, he wonders what the reason is for being called at such an inconvenient time. It's explained that he calls the best in the class to celebrate, but this time, he's way more excited about the protagonist's win. All of a sudden he freaks out, because he remembers something sudden he can't let slide. Knowing a lot about this world, she gives her friend a tip, warning that the commander will grant a wish to the best in the class. That hits the boy like a bullet of opportunity, and his mind starts bubbling with what he could do with it. Finally, the wagon arrives at the place, and they calm the horses so they don't miss the spot. As he gets out, she wishes the protagonist good luck, and he thanks his friend Teeny for the help. She says she'll be waiting, and asks him to tell a soldier if he ends up needing her help. All this talking, for someone with ADHD, is really confusing, and that's the case with the MC, who asks what she's trying to say with all of this. Laughing a little, she won't repeat what she said, and just tells him he'll find out soon. No need to stress. And she heads toward where she was going, without answering any more questions. All mysterious. He gets his commander's attention to finally understand what brought him there. Wearing a robe and already drinking from his mug, the commander is surprised his student got there so fast. As he walks further into the room, the hero is shocked at how many bottles the man has drunk, while hearing about his semester wrap-up. The table is loaded with fresh, delicious food because his friend didn't know what he liked, so he made a bit of everything. Also, they can enjoy it. Asks if there's anything the top one in the class wants to win, since he's granting wishes. With a smile on his face after finding out the news was true and he can take advantage of it, he thanks him without thinking much. Already jumping in to say what he wants, like a spoiled, irresponsible kid. Everyone is gathered in front of the barracks, grabbing their bags to head back to their families before the next semester starts. Doing the same, the two friends are there too, with their leather bags, heading off somewhere that isn't explained. After they're done walking, the blonde guy tosses his bag on the ground to rest a bit, since he's carrying something really heavy. Curious, he asks where his buddy was, because he looked everywhere and couldn't find him. It's explained that he spent the whole night drinking alcohol with his commander and celebrating, confirming, at last, all the rumors that the top one gets a special spa day. But the boy was wrong, and the rumor is that his boss actually has the MC as his favorite to become the best. But so he won't be judged. He says not to mix things up, and that it was nothing more than a tradition for the best in the class. With a really sly look, he tells the warrior to stop lying, since he believes the two of them didn't just stick to drinking. All excited, he pulls a sword out of his backpack and says that, after everything, he managed to win this item. This being a huge gift that can help him in battles that require some kind of spiritual blade, which freaks the blonde guy out because he didn't expect to see a spirit sword right in front of him here. The night before, we see that the captain really did gift him the object, gladly. Watching his student grab the blade eagerly, he thinks about what he must be thinking about all this, and about that feast, explaining then that this is a sword blessed by the high priests, making it a great choice for defeating monsters and beasts. When he pulls it from the sheath, you can see it's decorated, with a purple hilt and a handmade blade. The preppy guy notices the runes set into the middle of the sword, which let it have magical powers. With a proud smile on his face, knowing he's the best, he asks if his buddy is jealous of all this. Without thinking twice, he gets annoyed, because it's just a dumb question, since he's clearly super jealous of all these perks. But he tells himself there's no point wanting something someone already has, and that he'll get something better. Changing the subject, he asks what unit his best friend got placed in, so maybe they'll end up together. It's explained that the boy was chosen to be part of the infantry unit, which is really good and a great start to his career. That kind of place is great for getting promoted, especially for those who are frontline and officers. Once again, the hero finds himself underestimating his fake friend, because he realizes he planned every single one of his steps. Back to the real world, he's asked about his own future plans. A bit confused, he says he's going to the infantry unit, since it's an independent company. That name isn't so unfamiliar to the knight, who thinks about its history in silence. That object definitely must have some very clear use for the wizard to be this interested. He remembers he got so drunk that he saw his own commander fall asleep, drooling like a kid, After they ate everything they were allowed to and drank way past the limit, the man falls asleep without worrying about the outside world. Since he's someone very level-headed, he has a spell at his disposal to cleanse all the toxins from his body and not lose control. Right after that, he leaves the room and tells the guard to call his friend Tien, because he plans to meet up with her that same night. Looking then at a map or some board with a bunch of extremely complex information. That's expected, since it's all the troops stationed at the fort, from different sectors. With only 1 year left for the best in the class, if he lets his guard down, he can drop to last place. Finally, the redhead shows up in the middle of the boy's thoughts so they can talk. First, the boy apologizes for calling her so late at night, at bedtime, but it's all good because he seems really smart, making sure no one would notice the two of them together. Hearing that makes the MC get thoughtful, since the girl is really pleasant, making him wonder if this is some kind of order from the general, or if it's from the heart. Excited to know her colleague's future, she asks which unit he's planning to join. To stand out, he says he wants to go somewhere where there won't be as much interference, and also great for adapting. One of the good options would be to try to get into an independent infantry unit, or some kind of separate company. Knowing a lot about the army, the redhead says it's pretty obvious where her buddy is going, but first she asks if he has anything in mind, so they can line up what he wants. All of that was just a joke about being humble and understanding your path. She crosses out a few units that would be interesting to join, and take the next steps toward his famous revenge. She says those are the points of interest, with most of them being independent special forces companies. A question pops into her head. Maybe he doesn't know anything about what those special forces are. The only thing the hero knows is that it's a unit that handles rare, one-of-a-kind missions, usually doing dangerous tasks, but she believes the wizard won't get scared. Acting cold and calculating, he says flat out that he doesn't mind doing some dangerous things in his life, which is interesting because he acts in an unexpected way to get a promotion. Joining an independent company is hard at first, because most of the soldiers are officers, with only a few cadets. That can be a big problem, and it needs a quick, easy solution so it doesn't get worse over time. Something goes through young Sting's mind, and she comes up with a brilliant idea that might improve the situation. Pointing to a special forces unit away from the others, she says that might be an interesting spot, because it's one of the special forces units affiliated with the Great Commander, which would put the MC into action under the man's orders. With a smile on his face, he thanks her, because this will be a huge chance to move way up in life. The next day, he wraps up the conversation with his friend after explaining this whole story about why he's deciding to go to that infantry unit, convincing him of the reason. After the long talk, the carriage finally arrives to take the two of them to their life destinations. First to leave is the blonde guy, on his journey in search of a better situation. Before letting him go, he jokes in a calm, slightly fake way for him to be careful and not end up in heaven all of a sudden. It's a funny joke, and he asks his buddy to be careful on his journey too, because they don't know when they'll see each other next. Calmly, the mage watches the carriage go away while he's left alone with his thoughts. Suddenly, someone speaks up, grabbing his attention in a sudden, scary way. The bald guy was next to a carriage, watching everything in a weird way. Walking up, the boy introduces himself again to the guy, wanting to get to know him better. This is the driver who's going to take him where he needs to go, and he seems impatient. Seeing what made his employee waste so much time, he's left speechless, because he doesn't like disorganized things. But he gets excited again, because this is a new step toward his bright future. Turns out the lieutenant position is open, and most of the time it's where the best of the best manage to get. Still, it's going to be tough, because they normally don't accept new officers, but it's still worth trying, if he can push himself. Leaving the next day, he's shocked, because he didn't know his friend would be so blunt and straight with her info, brutally so. Some time passes, and the boy finally arrives at the military camp called Caliburn Needle. Sitting with the company commander, he introduces himself to get into the trenches. He realizes the person in front of him was the best cadet in the class, someone who'll make a great captain someday. He lies, saying the instructors at his camp wrote a fake report, because he wasn't the best in the class. He explains that he doesn't think he's talented enough to deserve being top one above everyone else. All of this is just a plan. Seeing the way the commander talks, it looks like he has a lot of doubts about his ability. Unlike the judgment of all the other officers, the team still isn't ready to accept the boy. He yells that this place isn't a playground, and that if the boy doesn't want to get kicked out, he'll have to give it his all. Then, being a serious person, he tells his cadet to head to the official residence. When he goes in, he's in for a surprise, since there are a bunch of boxes piled up and a huge mess to fix so he can have some peace. It's the company tradition to make their newbies take over the old house's repair workshop and reuse it, but to get it, he'll have to fix and organize everything by the end of the day, which is extremely hard with so little time. Without even waiting for an answer, he leaves, wishing the wizard good luck, thinking nobody will be able to help with that. With a basic look over things, he can already tell, in his first impressions, that his boss is a big childish man. Yeah, even if he spent the whole day cleaning, he wouldn't be able to finish the job in the estimated time if he were a normal human being. But since he's someone powerful in the art of magic and also with the sword, he activates his skill, doing that several times on the walls and on the dirt around the place. He leaves a shine like it was never even wrecked. Lastly, he throws a big blue restoring energy ball to finish the whole process. He throws that cleaning energy ball over the area to finish up and make the room look super fancy. That light is so powerful and bright that it goes past the whole room and lights up everything around it. The house itself looks like it's going through some powerful process, because the energy lights up the outside too. Traces of it reach the trees around, making the whole vibe look nice and tidy. Some time passes, and the captain is training his various soldiers in the sand. A cadet reports that all the special mission units have returned safely, asking if they should go back to their personal tents. Right away, with a smile on his face, he says there's a place where everyone has to gather together. Laughing a lot, in a teasing tone, he says a new lieutenant arrived and must be cleaning the warehouse right this moment. Everyone, laughing, heads toward the warehouse, knowing it's nothing but a prank on newbies who think they're all that and try to join the unit. However, their hopes are going to get crushed, because the mage isn't just anyone, and he achieves all his goals. Opening the door and shouting Henry's name, he asks if he's inside, before checking out all the cleaning. He gets startled right after, like he saw a shadow, since he has no reaction at all. The place once destroyed is shining, basically like it was just built by engineers. Somewhere inside the warehouse, proudly, the adventurer is having his little coffee. Looking calm, he welcomes his commander. Shocked, the commander thinks he can't believe what he's seeing with his own eyes, because in all his years of life he's never seen this happen. The house was cleaned so well that its walls are shining, gleaming, looking very fancy and elegant. Remembering his past life, he says he served way longer in the army than his childish captain has been alive on Earth. He asks what everyone is doing there, assuming they came to check how good his cleaning was, so he won't be seen as crazy. He lies while clearing his throat, saying he only came by to say hi and see the whole process. He introduces all the soldiers who are members of the company and the team in charge of the practical activities. Wearing a stylish red lieutenant uniform, he leaves his new home to see everyone he'll be working with in the future. It's explained that their looks are cold because of the most recent trauma, seeing the former lieutenant go to heaven after serving 5 years as a veteran officer. He was defeated during a mission inside the forest of all evil, a place full of loneliness where only the best can survive, more than a few hours. Proudly, he says he's the team's new lieutenant, and introduces himself so everyone will know him as the new boss. In disbelief, but with a lot of respect, they don't say anything, they just accept the new situation they've gotten themselves into. Unfortunately, he knows he'll have a lot of work to straighten out all the troublemakers among the soldiers with his own effort, but it's nothing he can't handle. Walking up to the first man, he asks his name, and he answers that it's Hodin. His first orders are for the soldier to take him to the former lieutenant's residence immediately. Time passes, and they finally arrive at the place meant for a thorough, detailed visit. He tells his subordinate to go back to the line and wait until he returns. Looking at everything, he thinks maybe his men will rebel because they still haven't forgotten the old commander and everything they went through. Knowing this place is still a private army, he can't let emotions take over, and he's going to win this mental battle as much as he can. But a few minutes go by, and the whole battalion is suddenly impressed by what they see in front of them. The new man walks up with a box, saying he's properly informed about the current situation, and he takes something out with his hands, asking if everyone is like that because they still haven't forgotten the good times with the former Commander Carter. Praising everyone, he says they look like good poets and must know how to sing a great song in the morning, pouring the liquid from his bottle over the wooden box, because he has something in mind, and lighting a match to control the crowd, he tells nobody to move or act rashly, like an order, throwing the matchstick into the box to prove his point, that now it's him who sent it over there, and don't worry about anyone's feelings in that place. In a dramatic way, the fire starts creeping toward the alcohol on top of the box, to ignite and burn everything, leaving the past behind. Everyone is stunned when they see the bonfire that started up, throwing all the remains of the old man up into the sky. Crying, a bald guy asks why he's doing this, since there were a lot of feelings involved. As he gets closer, he can't think clearly about what he should do in that moment, acting irrationally. Luckily, he realizes his soldiers' stares have gone cold again, and anything weird right now will be treated as rebellion. All of the man's friends get scared when they see he didn't stop for even a second. Annoyed, he says the person in front of him has a promise to keep, because becoming better than Carter is going to be hard. Calmly, the old man says not to worry, giving his soldier the freedom to fight. After being provoked, that's exactly what happens. He winds up a powerful punch. The man charges toward his target with pure hate. The scene feels super cinematic, as the soldier rushes in using all his strength and the agility from his training. Ready so he doesn't take a deadly punch, he activates his armor magic, glowing red around him. Managing to dodge the blow ahead of time, he avoids damage that would have really hurt. Right after that, to prove his point that he's way stronger, he counters the bald guy with a clean hit near the head that will definitely daze him. The spot he chose to hit with full force was the opponent's nose, using his elbow, breaking all his resistance and sense of space. That hit was precise, making the rebel back off, taking a few steps back, totally confused about the whole situation. Still pissed at all that nerve, he charges in, running with all his agility to land another attack, and humiliate who deserves it. The kick lands in the boy's stomach, sending him flying back with speed and force. A lot of red stuff pours from his face as he hits the ground, scattering debris and sand all over the battle arena, humiliating him in the process. Walking up in a cold, calculating way, he asks the name of the person in front of him, since he's going to be punished the proper way for situations like this. Holding his nose and trying to stop the flow of liquid, he can't move his mouth enough to speak. He asks if he's going to be bold again, and not answer the question. making himself subject to punishment. Scared, the soldier says his name, which is really weird to say across the whole continent. He starts lecturing every member of the team, saying they've all lost their common sense, and their minds are already gone. That was a really ugly move, and they should be ashamed they let this thing happen in such an honored territory. He argues that acting like this is never going to make the former Lieutenant Carter happy, watching all this misery from the sky. That argument hits everyone hard. The warriors are impressed, rethinking their actions and thoughts. The head of the local guard says everyone can go, since he has something in mind he needs to settle with the new lieutenant. The next scene is him throwing a powerful punch into the table, yelling in anger. You can tell he's so nervous he's shaking like a dog with heart problems, and it's honestly a pretty funny sight. Worried, he thinks that if they don't do anything, the newbie really is going to start commanding like he's the greatest warrior around, all authoritarian. To solve this problem, he has to fall back on a solution that leaves him no choice, and it's the most important decision he has to make. At night, that same day, the barracks light is on, meaning people are still awake. Someone paying attention can hear voices and noises inside a reserved room in the camp. There, the commander is surrounded by soldiers he invited earlier that day for this meeting. Afraid of losing his authority, he says he has something to tell his companions, and it's going to be important. All the planning gets done. Tomorrow comes again, giving the mage the chance to keep his plan going. The newest, youngest lieutenant steps out of his room, proud of everything he did, ready for another hard day of work. All the most important officers gather in a room to talk carefully about the current situation of the Special Forces team. First, Henry introduces himself, saying his name and that he'll be the battalion's new lieutenant. Right after that, a man named Hugo says he's the commander's head of personal affairs. The other one is named Vogue, and he's the support force, and also the head of the company's administration and supply. Since the blonde guy is the A senior, can also talk in a comfortable casual way, without needing to be polite. From what he heard, it's obvious his work buddy still hasn't learned anything about aura, asking if that rumor is true. Unfortunately, the protagonist says it's true, and that he still hasn't had time to focus and study that subject. Laughing a lot, he says he won't be fooled, cracking a joke about him having some erased memories. Changing his tone, he wonders if the kid even knows what kind of ground he's stepping on, even if he's skilled, calm about the future. The MC says the teachings about aura will come at the right time, and that he doesn't need to rush to understand it. That line pisses off all the officers at the table, who think this kid is nothing but a spoiled, arrogant brat. To prove their fellow officer's skill, they suggest a test to see what he knows about fields, but he answers that the most important position for a special missions lieutenant is his position in the company. The only possible explanation is that they're scared of his ability, a claim that shocks and rattles the blonde guy. That makes him stand up angrily, cursing at the boy and almost challenging him to a fight like an idiot. He asks how long he's going to keep messing with people's faces. He begs his commander to let the two of them clash to test aptitude. Trusting all his skill, the blonde guy thinks that on purpose he gathered all the company's troops to watch the humiliation he plans to dish out. The captain believes this place will show just how ugly it is to be a proud officer. He jokes, asking if his opponent doesn't want to test this fight with a real sword. Even then, the lieutenant gets irritated seeing his opponent keep his calm posture and keep talking nonsense non-stop. All the soldiers are gathered, talking and gossiping that this arena is going to be entertainment. They know Hugo is an advanced combat expert and not someone just anyone can beat, even if they know a bit of simple strategy. Even though the fight isn't with wooden swords, the ideal is that both of them give it their all. To prove he's the best in this place, he decides he'll use the maximum amount of power he has in his body. So he uses his famous armor magic, which starts powering up from his feet to his head, making his whole body give off a red energy. He becomes way stronger and more resistant in hand-to-hand fights. Eager to see the result, the commander yells that the fight has just started, and that everyone can act. Without stopping for even a second, the two charge at each other with their swords, charged with magic. With his eyes locked in, the boy who's calculating starts thinking through the moves and strategies he'll use to win right away. Same goes for his rival, who's also very experienced, and already has an idea of what he needs to do to win. With every second that passes, the clash gets more and more tense, with all the energy scattering red debris across the arena. Suddenly, the blade of one of the wooden swords is thrown at full speed toward the sun. The protagonist yanked, with just one precise strike, his enemy's weapon away, without having to try very hard, leaving the bald guy shocked, since that's basically impossible for someone who doesn't know what aura is, and has a class focused on agility. Hugo himself can't believe it when he looks at his blade and sees it's broken, which makes it impossible for him to fight. Proudly, the MC salutes him, saying he gave it everything he had in that clash. Then he heads off to his duties in a stylish, relaxed way, knowing he won. Breaking out in a cold sweat, the captain gets pissed, because his attempt to expose the rookie went down the drain fast. The kid wants to know why they aren't doing the morning meeting this time. All of a sudden, the man pulls out an assignment, saying the protagonist has been assigned to a mission. Without waiting to see the outcome, he leaves, saying he needs to rest a bit, because he's shaken up by what happened. Annoyed, the calculating guy curses out his comrades, since he realizes they're all the same, just by watching how they act and talk. Being an intellectual type, he doesn't need much time to read between the lines of the contract he has to sign. He realizes they're setting him up for trouble in the forest of all evil, in a Class 9 patrol area. He gets sad, because he knows he's been assigned to an extremely difficult mission, one he might not be able to get through at the level he's at. Inside the army's main headquarters, someone is cleared to enter the commander's room. Henry comes in to talk about the worrying matter from the night before, with his friend and confidant. He asks the reason your student is there gets revealed. The assignment he got seems harder than it needs to be. That one simple sentence is enough to piss off the drunk, who gets annoyed by stuff and corruption like that. It's explained that Henry got assigned to something different from missions, and today's duty is just a simple division swap. His initial direction was to run tough missions to gain experience. The general doesn't get what the complaint is. Arguing back, the MC says he's proven his skills multiple times through duels, especially the most recent one against the great warrior Hugo. That scares the old man, who doesn't believe the protagonist really managed to be better than the most skilled lieutenant in the troop, because in his whole life he's never seen someone beat another person using just one hit with a weak wooden sword. Even though he knows a lot about everyone and the whole continent, he's never heard a story as shocking as that. He says it's a terrible habit to start telling lies just to get out of a situation. Still, the boy says he can prove everything. It doesn't take much to convince the general, who jokes that only good news has reached him this morning. But he really needs to know if the info is true, and since the kid didn't like the first mission he was given, he says he'd like to go to Class 6 district, since he has a plan in mind to get it done. His goal is to go after his hidden treasures, marked on the map by his past self. Lying, he says he's never been there, and explains it's the main place for the team's missions, and that he'd like to learn more about that territory. That's a solid enough argument, since the man was already planning to send him to the 9th district. After giving all that news, the man has one last thing to say, and it could make life really hard for his favorite friend. With a focused look, he says that as soon as this mission is finished and the boy comes back, he'll be sent on the mission he's been asking for so long. Without thinking much, he asks for the instructions right away, since he clearly knows what to do with all of this. Lazily, the commander tells his assistant to grab all the paperwork from the former lieutenant and get the trip ready for his new soldier. Some time passes, and the girl comes back with a pretty formal, elegant letter, with the necessary information. It's explained again that the former team leader was someone well respected and known by everyone. The MC starts thinking about the mission that got his predecessor taken out and sent to heaven in such a tragic way. The commander asks if his student isn't curious to know more details about that operation, since it was so dangerous. The area for this mission wasn't in some simple district. It was a job that got one of the powerful lieutenants killed, definitely urgent level. When the MC answers that he was trying to understand, the captain is happy, because that was exactly what he expected from his soldier. They say that a long time ago, Carter was trying to defeat a demon who really liked tricks and games. The word demon hasn't been heard in a long time by the sorcerer, who hasn't heard that since his past life. The question he can't stop asking is why that man was going after that target so relentlessly, with no obvious reason. The first time they met, the commander lost all his men to that monster, after a failed mission in District 7. Losing all his teammates was a huge blow to his mental state. Being a trained soldier, the deceased man was one of the most loyal people in the whole army, not willing to just accept the defeat of his soldiers. That mission got assigned to Carter, who was thirsty for revenge, and knew he could beat anyone to achieve his goals. He was one of the best candidates for special missions, even though it's a really stupid idea to try to get revenge alone. The MC rethinks his actions, and maybe the best move right now is to bring back the former unit commander's remains. Understanding his companion's side, the old man argues that a predator doesn't stop hunting just because it's full. That's the demon's case. It's taking people down just for fun, even when it isn't hungry or anything like that. Right now, the beast is a target the fort is keeping an eye on, and they'll definitely assign special missions to finally get rid of this problem. Trusting the boy's abilities, the commander praises him for his intelligence, saying he knows he'll do his best and manage to finish this task no matter how hard it is. One really bad piece of news is that if he gets taken out in the process, he won't be able to bring the body back for a proper burial. The MC goes back to reading all the papers inside the letter to understand in detail what he's doing and plan his next steps. He goes page by page reading every word and understanding as much as he can with all his intelligence. He thinks it's going to be a very hard task if one of his targets really is an actual demon, since they rarely show up. Summing up all of his opponent's abilities, he can transform into a Class 6 demon. A big advantage is that it's highly intelligent and can easily speak the human language, and it has condensed, unstable black magic. The information from the last 5 years helps make it clear that this thing is hostile and powerful. After spending a few minutes reading everything carefully, he starts mentally preparing to head to the mission location and do his job right. Some time passes inside the fort, and everything is going fine. We see a wooden door that can't hide the noises coming from inside the room. Suddenly one of the unit's soldiers comes in, asking if the lieutenant had called him to do a few favors right now. The MC explains that the last mission was cancelled, and that same afternoon, orders everyone to head out on patrol toward the Class 6 district. That really scares the man, who's afraid to go to that place because it's way above what's necessary. He asks if his unit sheriff knows the story of the being that defeated Commander Carter on the last mission. He explains he was assigned to complete this operation and carry out the dead man's final wishes. He warns his soldier that the information kept over the last 5 years hasn't been very good. After all, today is his first day as an official army lieutenant, and he just wants to do something easy to celebrate this final approval. But something crosses the MC's mind, and he remembers and calls the person in the room's attention. He pulls the old officer's belongings out of a hidden cabinet, ordering him to take it out of there. He says he never actually burned the real remains, and that it was just a way to identify the more rebellious people in his battalion. He worries about how the boy who fought brutally the night before is doing mentally and medically. Understanding that the new boss is a good man, the soldier thanks him for everything and apologizes for anything he might have done against him. Luckily, the hero replies that it's all fine, since everyone's only job there is to show they've got a thinking head to act and make rational decisions for the greater good. Leaving the room in a polite, formal way, he does the army salute, shouting. However, the mage doesn't like such formal greetings, and says he doesn't need to do them when he's around. After watching his subordinate leave, he starts thinking that maybe this is the right moment to finally begin all his research and his goals. It's pretty nice to know that the Special Missions Battalion is hired by a very professional company. Commanding his troop, the boy who climbed his way up gathers everyone in an organized way in front of the barracks. He says that right now is very important, since they're about to leave for an extremely risky mission in District 6. Together, everyone shouts that they understand and are ready for whatever comes, even knowing they might not come back. After all that is said, the fort's bridge is finally released, opening the way to the forest of all evil once again. All the soldiers, along with their leader, look out at the view they have from now on, getting ready for a long, exhausting, difficult journey. Motivating everyone, the sorcerer lets out a shout, saying they can start moving and walking as soon as possible. The bridge keeps stretching out across the whole span of the territory, allowing the passage to stay open. In an organized, orderly way, everyone keeps walking through the area, while thinking it's been a long time since they went on an operation like this. It's a pretty nostalgic sight, just watching the horizon far off in the distance, making the protagonist remember his glorious past life, where he won many victories and earned recognition. His goal is to move quietly toward his destination, which is in District 6. As he walks, he starts activating some spells, thinking maybe this is the right time to start putting his plan into action. Activating, imperceptibly, a spell called Loneliness in a crowd on all of his men, making a group of people not draw any attention or interest. The Forest of All Evil is one of the most dangerous biomes on the whole continent, because it has dangerous monsters everywhere you look, making it deadly for newbies. After walking for several minutes without being attacked so far, the curious warrior asks if there's something different about today. He wonders how they haven't been attacked or gotten into trouble even once, which they normally would. It's happened more than 10 times. With a smile on his face, the squad sheriff talks to his friend, saying he's got a good vibe and a good feeling about this journey. They arrive at the safe zone inside the Forest of All Evil, in District 6. He thinks about how he didn't know his solitude magic was being used properly in this place. Looking at all the men, he realizes nobody is hurt or has gotten into any really serious trouble. To keep the plan going, he steps forward and asks for everyone's attention, because he wants to deliver a very important message. He tells everyone the goal of this mission is to get some clue about that demon, and maybe even take it out. Even though he has information the lieutenant wrote over the last 5 years, that stack of papers didn't help much with the hunt. Based on the information, they know the target is a Class 6 demon that can talk, and seems to act like a maniac. Opening the map, he says that today they have a clear objective to investigate, something that might bring them closer to the conclusion. The paper has a drawing of a very interesting mushroom, known for growing in the Class 5 district. Since they're looking for the enemy, they need to go to an environment with a lower cursed energy class. If the monster is at a level below 6, there's a small chance this kind of food and mushroom will grow. With a smile on his face, the hero agrees and says he's going to split his unit into 2 separate groups, one led by himself, and the other by the most efficient sergeant. The idea is that as soon as they split up the squad, they can avoid as many conflicts as possible, and after 6 hours meet up again in the safe zone. He holds out his hand with a piece of paper, warning that the battalion sergeant needs to take this item with him on his trip. It's explained that this item is a support spell that can be used in an emergency, transmitting the battalion's location when they're in serious danger. The commander handed over this object, saying it was something too expensive to be used just anyway, which is nothing but a lie, since the boy made it in a hurry. Very carefully, the sergeant believes the lie and is as cautious as possible, holding the paper so he won't tear it or smudge it. He asks them to organize into 2 different groups so they can finally continue the operation in an orderly way. Watching his captain leave, one of the soldiers says they'll see each other in the next 6 hours, promising they'll survive this journey. Leading part of his team, he tells everyone to move as soon as possible so they can reach the objective quickly. The forest is really quiet as the whole squad moves, which is unusual for this place. Suddenly, the soldier wonders if he can ask his lieutenant a question he's been thinking about for a long time. Since he's a rookie officer, he didn't come across as very credible when talking about his strategy for how to use the investigation mushroom for the tasks. He read that strategy in a book that illustrated the plants inside the territory of the Forest of All Evil. Still, he thinks it doesn't make sense for a level 6 demon to live on a lower level. The mushrooms thereafter were placed decades ago by his past life to protect the place where the hidden treasure is. Using these skilled troops for a selfish goal makes him feel bad, but unfortunately, he can't tell the truth. The sun starts to set across the whole continent. Meanwhile, the totem keeps protecting the safe zone in the middle of the district. You can see time passing, and the sergeants, along with their men, are tired from the whole trip. Seeing this, the MC gets irritated, because he tracked as much as he could, but couldn't find a single mushroom. That attitude starts to stir thoughts in his own men, since it doesn't make sense to care that much about the dead man's legacy. And they feel bad for having treated the protagonist the wrong way, seeing that he's a good man. In fact, the fact that the boy is the new officer doesn't matter anymore, because he's already earned everyone's trust in this short period of time. Everyone thinks it over and swears loyalty to the new lieutenant, even if it costs their lives or something even worse than that. The treasure hunt didn't stop, lighting up the whole continent in the process. The ring was placed in front of a red cursed rune, while someone speaks demonic words. He's doing his nighttime summoning ritual, to maybe ask his good friend for some advice, before leaving to continue the journey. Once again, the gate to the afterlife opens up, letting a friendly spirit calmly come out to trade messages. It's been a long time since the two of them met to have a good talk. Since the last time it happened, the MC asks how Hector has been all this time. In hell, before being summoned again, the spirit comes out already asking why he still hasn't been assigned a unit to lead, and that he's missing having an army. Talking about what happened, the hero says they doubted his skills, so he had to teach everyone a good lesson. He says all those men must be ashamed, because they were definitely experts with big reputations. Unfortunately, the guy says he isn't making progress, since he got a tough assignment during a time when he wasn't training as much. The monster's curiosity doesn't stop, asking what kind of important task this is that's making him go back to training. Honestly, the hero wants to be as truthful as possible with Hector, since he's one of the few people who tries not to trick others or take advantage. The night goes on, and the two of them talk for a long time and maybe plan the next steps of their revenge. A few hours pass after the whole story is explained, and the creature says he can't let this happen. So the initial plan is to manage to capture the demon before he does something even worse to his friend. Unfortunately, that's way easier said than done, making the spirit curse out his wizard buddy as an idiot for trying the easy way. He suggests asking one of Negro's victims, because he knows the former Lieutenant Carter was obsessed with tracking him for the last 5 years. Using his intelligence, he starts thinking about how a victim would be useful for an investigation like this, and finally gets it in a snap. He even feels bad for not thinking of a quick solution, because obviously he could summon the dead man's soul. The only problem is that he needs an item imbued with a link to the man's spirit. Still, that same night he asks the summoned one to wait a moment, since he'll get that item before sunrise. The letter that contains all the information about the target is the item Carter valued most in his entire life. While the boy is writing the summoning rune on the ground with chalk, Hector wonders what will happen if someone else gets summoned at the same time. Unfortunately, even though he's a mage who knows a lot about magic, he doesn't know what will happen, because he never tested that in his past life either. Eager to get all the answers, he starts speaking unknown magic words, and continues the spirit ritual. Burning a lot of mana from his body, he uses every circle he can in his heart to make the most perfect spell he can, shouting out loud so the beyond can hear. He says Carter can finally come out. After a long time, the MC keeps calling the dead summoned man's name, with no result, losing hope when, even after waiting so long, nothing comes out from inside the door. It's possible his soul ended up in some other kind of hell, since the ritual and the magic used were executed perfectly. Having done a perfect process and getting nothing back is driving the boy crazy, making him feel awful. Maybe the only reason nobody showed up is that the former lieutenant is somehow still alive. His goal now is to try to summon Carter's companions, who were also victims of the demon. What might be hard is getting belongings from people who died more than 5 years ago. One of the only places that can help with this task is the Great Cradle of Heroes, because their bodies might be buried there instead of the Tomb of All Veterans. According to the news about the attack, one of the dead was named Holterbelt. After searching a bit, he finally finds a grave with all of that poor man's belongings. When he picks up the item, he believes it's enough, and starts the ritual once again, placing everything in the right spot. He starts charging up his magic to finish the process. Luckily, it seems to have worked when someone's eyes start to appear. Holterbelt's spirit starts to form, freaking the wizard out. Coming to his senses, the man seems confused about what's going on, but Henry introduces himself and explains why he summoned him right now. Hearing that Carter is missing because of the demon really pisses the spirit off. Everyone liked the lieutenant, and the man breaks down crying, devastated by the news he heard, realizing they lost 5 years of their lives fighting a beast that ended up winning in the end. To keep the investigation going, the hero asks what the enemy looks like physically, but it seems like there's something about it he still hasn't understood. The creature doesn't transform, but it steals and fully uses its target's body, like some evil parasite, jumping from soldier to soldier, and taking them out one by one in the process. That completely changes the situation, making the MC think about how to deal with it before sending the warrior off to heaven. The creature revealed its evil plan to become a true demon, some kind of evolved state, where it gathers enough dark energy to change. Unfortunately, that's the worst-case scenario, and things get worse with every second that passes. While he was frozen in fear, he heard that it should be an honor to be defeated by such a powerful demon. After that, the creature poured out some weird magic that made him enter his enemy's mind, making him feel the urge to take over bodies and brutally defeat lots of people. The only thing he remembers is a distinctive smell, explaining that it felt like a deodorant they got from a trade partner. The deodorant brand is famous across the whole continent, called Febreze. The MC wants to ask the man for something, but he refuses because he doesn't want revenge, and he cries, asking to thank Carter for everything he did for the battalion. After the body disappears, the summoned one jokes that he thought his friend would get cursed in the process. Hoping to find it, he looks in the captain's room for the deodorant mentioned the night before. Since it's useful, the redhead shows up with the item he wanted in her hand, apologizing for the interruption. Leaning in close to her friend's ear, she says she wants a favor in exchange for the deodorant she managed to find, asking them to go on a date on the next day off, which the MC accepts right away. Back on the battlefield, the hero asks if anyone remembers a bottle that looks like the item in his hand. Unfortunately, none of the soldiers remember anything like this object, making the boy wonder if the spirit's testimony was wrong, since nobody remembers. Not being able to do anything with that, he gathers his men, saying they have to continue the mission immediately. Seeing everyone leave to go handle their personal investigations, he starts to wonder if he should do the same. Slowly, activating his magic, solitude and crowd on all his soldiers, he keeps them safe. After spraying several bursts of perfume on his body, he activates a spell called Vapor Skin. This spell was made for women who wanted their perfume to spread through the whole room. The smell is strong enough to draw the target's attention inside a dark cave. That leaves him confused because he hasn't smelled it in many years, and it doesn't make sense for it to show up again now. Still, something happens that irritates him, making him let out a loud scream through the whole cave. All his companions hear it and go on alert too, heading toward the forest. Some time passes and the perfume seems to have had no effect, making the protagonist think he needs to summon other victims. Unfortunately, for today that's all he can do, and he tries once more to spray the perfume together with his magic. Finally, the boy hears the shouting noises of the creatures called Taros, who are half human too. Suddenly, a powerful lightning bolt strikes the lieutenant, dealing massive surprise damage. All the soldiers are completely terrified when they see one of the strongest men they've ever seen fall to the ground, probably dead. In that instant, an army of bullmen shows up looking for war. Keeping calm, the sergeant says he'll lead from now on, asking everyone to hold the formation they trained. With their blood boiling, the soldiers actually want to avenge their comrade and leader. But that's not the best option right now. Afraid of dying, the new leader orders everyone to start running with all the strength they've got. Finally, like a demonic entity, the creature appears leading its army, with no mercy. Wanting to defeat everyone, it slams a blow into the ground. Using its magic, that ability made the exit get blocked, leaving the only choice to fight until they go to heaven. The soldiers don't want to follow the sergeant's orders and start grouping up, because they don't want to go back to the company without having avenged their friend. The war kicks off non-stop, with all the soldiers and Tarans fighting with everything they've got. Even though they're big beasts, the fight is balanced, because the soldiers are trained. While everyone is tearing into each other, the leader moves toward the MC. Even during the fight, the bald guy notices it and stays on alert, trying to stop something worse from happening to the lieutenant, charging at full speed toward his opponent, hoping to attack him and prevent something worse. Unfortunately, he's powerful, and with just one hit, he knocks him to the ground several meters away. Once again, the bull activates his lightning magic toward the soldier, who has no way to escape. While he was getting ready to head to heaven, something catches his attention, saving his life. Like a hero, the protagonist is once again alive, taking the full impact. Turns out he was slicing with his blade a paper with magical runes written on it. After that, he helps his companion up and asks him to let everyone know he's alive, so they can all get motivated again. With eyes full of tears, the soldier is happy and returns to his fighting post. Completely pissed off, the hero asks if it was that beast that attacked him with a powerful lightning bolt earlier. Totally crazed, the bull screams, charging at his opponent, wanting to defeat him immediately. The fight keeps going brutally, with several attacks and defenses in a row, with nobody landing anything on anyone. Then the warrior mocks him, landing a powerful kick to his opponent's chest, sending him flying back. Seeing a golden opportunity, he cuts his head off in a fatal strike. Seeing the thing roll away and splash juice on his face, the fight seems to finally be over, but he realizes the beast still hasn't died, and the head keeps talking non-stop. Even with the body dead, the head keeps hopping around with cursed energy, interacting with the hero. He says it's an honor to become the demon's new host, as he throws the spell right in his face. Luckily, that magic won't work on the sorcerer, who was using protection for that. Using his blessed sword, he cuts the head, splitting it into two parts. However, he realizes the beast isn't a spirit or a demon, staying alive even without a body. He uses a powerful cleansing spell to banish the cursed energy back to where it belongs. Unfortunately, the target manages to dodge and escape in the blink of an eye, which is pretty funny, because he never imagined a beast that strong would be running away scared. So he uses a spell called Return to the Body to find the soldiers who died. The energy keeps running from the mage's ability as much as it can, just to survive one more day. You can tell it's desperate, trying to find a new host so it can get back into the fight. It finally manages to find a bear that was inside the forest. Seeing the boy getting closer, it thinks it has to act natural, so it won't get found out in this situation. It manages to start fooling the hero, who thinks it's just a normal bear. When it sees the warrior turn around, it believes this is the perfect chance to take him out. But all of it was just the hero putting on a show, and he attacks without mercy. With a snap of his fingers, he uses his fire magic to burn the spirit along with the body. Unable to escape, it comes closer to try some kind of dialogue with its opponent. Seeing his enemy won't talk, the hero is going to use magic to force it to say what it wants. The spirit starts helping the MC, leading him into the cave. Inside, the boy notices the former lieutenant's body in a preserved state. The energy, once again, starts pushing forward, wanting to take over the warrior's body, making the man's fallen body rise up alive in a supernatural way. But all of that was part of the lieutenant's plan, because he knew this wouldn't be easy. Carter pulls out his sharp sword, calling his opponent to a final showdown, making the MC realize the parasite can use the host's powers however it wants. Laughing, he says the target will pay the price for bothering someone so powerful, becoming the new body being used. The fight starts at full speed, with the boy dodging so he won't hurt his buddy. He lands a solid hit on his back, trying to knock him out. As his opponent falls to the ground out of control, the warrior says he's nothing but a weak spirit, humiliating him even more. He argues the beast doesn't know how to use a sword or be human, saying that to become a swordsman you need years of training. He uses a powerful paralysis spell, making it impossible for him to move. When the parasite begs to be spared, the hero decides what to do after understanding what exactly his enemy is. It's explained that the evil spirit is the last survivor of his tribe and race, a mimic that acts like a parasite, attacking any humans who bother him. Seeing the hero is going to break the promise, the beast asks him to wait, because he wants to show something. He throws an interesting coin on the ground, saying that if he's spared, he'll give all the cave's treasures to the boy. These items were collected over the years through looting and theft. After thinking for a while, the boy believes the best option is to make the target a subordinate. Inside the cave, he picks up a platinum ring, which is great for hiding energy. As he puts the item on his finger, he asks if they should make a contract to seal their friendship. Using his magic, he starts the deal, asking the target to swear obedience to him. Completely miserable, and with no way out, the parasite accepts the terms and offers up its heart. At last, the promise is made, and the proof is placed inside the ring. Even though the process is painful, it isn't fatal if it can hold out until the very end. The spirit will come, a small friendly ghost, keeping its powers. Unfortunately, the creature can only appear if the protagonist orders it to. After all that, the lieutenant takes his colleague's body back. Meanwhile, the fight finally ends with the soldier's victory. All of a sudden, the warriors notice the MC has returned with someone on his back. They celebrate, really excited to see their former lieutenant is alive and has been rescued back to the barracks. The generals can't believe what they're seeing. Everyone thanks the protagonist for leading this operation. The officers realize they judged their colleague wrong when they heard the wounded should go to the infirmary first. But that makes the MC think he did way more than they're saying when he sees Henry wants to go back to the battlefield. The bald guy tells him to get better medical treatment. They say Commander Esselin is looking for him, which makes him tense. The two of them are in the room drinking alcohol once again, talking nonsense. In the middle of all that chatter, the parasite asks if its master needs help. Surprisingly, the hero thinks it's a good idea for his spirit to drink the alcohol in his place. Activating the ring for the first time, he thinks this is a great chance to prove the little thing is loyal. Noticing its personality has become more docile, probably because of the ring's platinum, the men keep drinking and eating non-stop while they talk. After downing a huge mug of liquid, the captain completely passes out of strength. That makes the MC think he was expecting a bigger challenge, since his colleague is one of the best. Even after achieving his goal, he still couldn't find any of the treasure chests, which was his original purpose. Calling his spirit, he asks it to change its appearance into something more familiar. Using its magic, the parasite turns into a friendly cat, so it can walk around among humans. It's explained the boy is doing all this because he wants to learn more about this creature. He starts analyzing that it's not a mimic or a true parasite, which is really strange. It reacts to specific kinds of smells, like cucumber or similar things. Some time passes, and the soldier comes back with a big pickle in his hand, scaring the cat. To keep testing and understand better, he asks the cat to eat the food to see the reaction, which is weird, because Carter wasn't wearing deodorant to be the target of such a sudden attack. It's explained the demon was curious, because it was looking for a host for its evolution. To finish his goal of finding the treasure, he asks if his pet saw anything that looks like those mushrooms. He knows, making the two of them head out on a mission in the middle of the night. After activating his magic, he's suspicious about where they're going, but he has to trust the cat's instincts. He activates a powerful spell that lets him fly up over the fort's giant walls. From high in the sky, he starts scanning the whole area, trying to spot small mushrooms and find his chests. He manages to find a point of interest, and rushes at full speed to recover the money. Before he lands, he activates the Featherfall spell, keeping himself from taking any kind of damage on impact. Luckily, he finds the spot that's behind this huge tree blocking the way. Without wasting time, the hero draws his sword and cuts the trunk in half. After watching the wood fall, he wonders if this is the right place because there's nothing there. Realizing there are several mushroom spores that manage to grow comfortably in this spot, so he asks his cat to investigate more, using its nose to sniff out the chest. Even with a friendly look, the spirit is still very powerful, and casts a spell that can tell scents apart. That way, it easily finds the passage to a cave, where the objective was being kept. Our video ends here. If you liked it, leave your like. See you next time. Bye bye.